It's 2015. Let me just get my agenda. It's at the top of the agenda. A public hearing has been scheduled to allow interested citizens an opportunity to express their opinions regarding the proposed reconstruction and repair of various town roads and roadside elements. And may we have roll call, please?
Councilman Arnone.
Here.
Councilman Bosco. Councilman Sakala.
Here.
Councilman Jenny.
Here.
Councilman Edgar. Councilman Hall. Mayor Copen.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Lee. Councilman Mangini. Councilman Stokes.
Here.
Councilman Suzak.
Here.
We have 6 members present and 5 are absent.
The following notice of public hearing was published in the Hartford Courant Friday, July 25th, 2014. Town of Enfield Legal Notice Public Hearing. The Enfield Town Council will hold a public hearing in the Enfield Town Hall Council Chamber, 820 Enfield Street, Enfield, Connecticut, on Monday, August 4th, 2014, at 6:15 p.m. to allow interested citizens an opportunity to express their opinions regarding the proposed reconstruction and repair of various town roads and roadside elements. Ground rules for the public hearing are as follows. 1, there is no time limit, but I ask that each person not take up too much time so that everyone will have an opportunity to speak. 2, after each person who desires has had one chance to speak, I shall permit those individuals who desire a second chance. 3, after those individuals who desire to speak a second time, I shall permit those individuals who desire a third, fourth, etc. time. And 4, we ask that you please refrain from the use of personalities. We'll begin with a presentation by folks from the Department of Public Works. After the presentation, we'll open it up for questions, comments from the public.
We have a brief presentation, Bill Taylor, John Cabibbo, and Don Nunes.
You stole my introduction,
I thought I would.
Mr. Manager. Donald has prepared, we have prepared a very brief presentation that Donald will now give you.
Good. Go ahead. Good.
All right. Good? All right. Hey, Matt, how do we make this, our video experts on vacation, so,
Power button.
okay.
Mayor Copen, councilors, good evening. Just want to, again, like you said, we're going to briefly recap what the Roads 2015 program entails. We've talked a lot about pavement condition index, and with that, we talked about being a report card of our roads. The PCI index is a numerical index between 0, which is an impassable road, and 100, which is newly paved, that is used to indicate the general condition of a pavement or of a road. The PCI also helps us to determine the type of treatment that best suits that road, which also allows us for giving the road and giving the best bang for our buck. The A rating, which is a PCI of a 93 to 100, means that the road is in excellent condition and it needs no immediate maintenance, such as a newly paved road and the like. In early or late fall, early spring, our consultant drove through the entire town and rated every single street, again, based on these conditions with a variety of factors. And overall, the townwide, the PCI was a 77, which includes all local roads, all arterials and collectors. Now, example of a PCI of 100 is Burnham Street. This falls in the rank of, again, no maintenance with a rank of 93 to 100. This road is classified as 100. There's nothing more that we need to do on this road. The PCI of between 86 and 92 calls for routine maintenance, such as Pinewood. This street has an 88, and this would be a perfect candidate for, again, crack sealing or local repair. As I say, there was a trench repair or anything, something small, something minor, or crack sealing. That's the type of treatment that we would use on a street with the PCI between 86 and 92. Now, PCI with 7385 falls in preventative maintenance. preventative maintenance, such as Iroquois Road. This road is ranked as a 77. This is a good candidate for either a thin overlay, such as 1 inch or so, or microsurfacing, which we are doing now on 9 streets as part of the pavement preservation program. Now, structural improvement, PCIs range from 61 to 72, such as Pilgrim Circle. This would include milling and overlaying. So with the milling, we take off 1.5 to 2 inches of the pavement that's there and repave with that, and repave the road new. And a PCI between 0 and 60 calls for base rehabilitation. Now, this road, again, Rocket Run, which is part of our road reconstruction 2014 program for this year, is a candidate for, again, base rehabilitation. With that, we take all the pavement off, we take the gravel that's underneath it, and replace everything new, and along with a typical profile of 8 inches of gravel and 4 inches of new pavement on top of that. So everything is rebuilt from the top down. This program for the roads 2015 referendum, we went with a goal-based approach in that the main thing is to develop and maintain a different PCI, or pavement condition index, for arterials and collectors versus the local residential streets. Now, arterial collectors are roads such as Brainerd Road South, Raffia Road, and local streets are like Woodward, Mountain View, John Street, and the like. With this, again, goal-based approach, we will utilize a wide range of pavement management techniques, such as the ones we just talked about, either with crack sealing, overlays, using everything that we have as current technology to get the best bang for the dollar. With that, with this goal-based approach, we will maintain the gains in the PCI that we have realized throughout the past several years. Now, the town has done a lot of construction, and a lot of funds went into the road. We don't want to lose where we're at right now, and that's what this goal-based approach accomplishes. Now, the two different approaches, the arterials and collectors have a goal PCI of an 82, which is about 5 points higher than our average right now. And why are we going higher on the arterials and collectors? More people utilize the town's arterial and collector streets than local residential roads. By doing so, again, we are ensuring that the greatest number of people benefit from every dollar that we spend on the arterials and collectors. Now, the program that we've handed out or has been available, as in the back, is going to be $10 million over 5 years, which is an achievable goal to get these arterials back to, raise them up to an 82. Now, the local residential goals, we're shooting for a 75. Now, the priority will be to reconstruct all the roads discussed as part of the previous referendums. Now, this will also include all the streets in Nealon's Park, on the Buckhorn, and all of Crescent Lake will be part of this program. The total program cost, as we discussed, would be $50 million over 5 years. Now, our current backlog of reconstruction in local streets alone is over $84 million. Again, I told you it was quick. In summary, we're proposing for the Roads 2015 referendum a $2 million program per year for collectors and arterials, a $10 million a year for local residential streets. With this, again, the biggest thing that we're trying to impress is that we maintain the gains that we have done, and all the road construction we have right now, we will maintain where we are, if not improve, since 2000. As part of this program, we will be doing approximately 6.5 miles of pavement preservation, over 35 miles of reconstruction as part of this program. We've also provided an ancillary list of streets that, if there is funding available at the end of the 2015 roads money, we will use that money to do those streets on that ancillary list in that order of benefit value. Those streets are also been handed out and are also posted in the back. And again, what we're trying to do is make sure that the greatest number of people possible benefit from every dollar that we spend on town roads. And if we need any more information, we are available, again, at www.enfield.gov. We have a bunch of information online. And Mayor Copeland and councilors, thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. And they're not going to go anywhere, because if there's questions that come up that we want to address this evening, after the first round, we'll have them come back up and answer any questions. So we'll move to the public hearing portion of the public hearing. And we have a stuck, there we go. For the public hearing, I'll just ask for people that would like to address the council, please raise your hand. I'll call on you. Mr. Moriarty, you're first. Come on up.
Good evening. My name's Steve Moriarty, 24 Cedar Drive. I'm encouraged by the program that they want to do with the complete streets part of it. We still need to repave Cedar Drive, though. And the complete streets is going to benefit all the people of this town and draw people into this town. But talking specifically about Cedar Drive, where I live, I was informed by a neighbor of mine who did the research, so I didn't do this research. It was provided for me. For the project's 2010 program, our street was rated between 0 and 59, and it wasn't listed on the streets to be done. Apparently, it was the rating was adjusted to a 63. Still nothing done. I'd like to know why it's not being done. The street needs to be done. It's not the worst street in town. Rocket Run by far looks like a war zone, and same thing with Bond. But Cedar Drive is going to head that way. It should have been on the 2010 roads referendum, and it's not on this one. The ratings can't go up by themselves. I don't know what's going on. Somebody coming around sprinkling a little fairy dust on the street or something, saying it's better. It's not. Every time I call the town or go through the C-Click Fix, those guys are out there the next day. 3 times so far this year in front of my house, potholes have formed. I hear the trucks going down the street. I feel it when they hit in front of my house. Now I get these I get these letters saying, oh, I should have sewer insurance. Well, the damage that's caused by the road to my sewers, why should I have to get insurance for it? It's being done because the roads aren't being taken care of. Now, I know you guys have a limited amount of money to do this, but Cedar Drive has been on, or should have been on this list years ago. And lastly, after you pave Cedar Drive, I'd like to know the streets that aren't being done, that do look like a war zone. How are they being credited for their property tax? Their property tax, or the value of their house, should be lower because the streets in front of them have no curb appeal. I don't see that being addressed at all. We have 2 realtors on this council. They know when you have a house, you have to have curb appeal. It has a direct direct effect on the value of the property. Why am I not my property not being adjusted accordingly? If this has never been addressed, it needs to be addressed with the streets that are not being done. And you do need to pave Cedar Drive. And lastly, repave Cedar Drive, and God bless America. I'm glad you all had a nice vacation. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Got this gentleman here in the blue, gentleman in the back, followed by Jack. Oh, that's Ron in the back. So Ron, you're on deck.
My name is James McCarthy. I live at Ted Locks Lane, and I want to give you some information to completely do a better job of paving, and I'll explain why. I retired from the Metropolitan District, 35 years there, and in those 35 years, I was a construction inspector, senior. And for 10 years there, I was in charge of paving for the Metropolitan District. And for 3 years, I didn't work for them, I worked for the town of Enfield. They rented me for 3 years when your sewers were being put in. And One of the big problems is I came over last year and I wanted to see the town manager just to explain there was a problem with Raffia Road was being reconstructed, and I said, well, I wanted to talk about the manholes as being improper, and he said, well, you go next door and speak to the gentleman over there. I went next door, I spoke to the gentleman next door, and I said to him, I said, you know, I explained who I was, he accepted that, and I said, all the manholes on Raffia Road are incorrect. They've all got to be adjusted. And he said, well, we have somebody out on the road out there, and he said, we'll talk to them and see that they were adjusted. Not one single manhole on Raffia Road was adjusted. It was not touched, not one. I checked every day, not one manhole was touched on a thing. They paved over and look at Raffia Road. This is where the manholes are right now. And incidentally, it just happened to mention about Rocket Run. In front of number 6 Rocket Run, here's how the street is, and that's where the manhole is. Instead of being up here, it's down there. Okay. That being said, I have some information I'd like to hand to you individuals, and I'll explain to it. But I've got 3 copies that. Not a problem having new here. They don't work as good as the original ones. Take this passage along.
Thank you, sir.
The information on there explains the procedures on a thing, and out of the thousands of manholes that I have been responsible for, not one was at the wrong grade when it was paved. I'm literally talking about thousands of them. Never had a manhole that had to be done. What this is something that could be put into your contract. It's legal. It's in the Metropolitan District contract. It's legal. Prior to the binding, placing the binder cost. Now, the binder cost is the first part goes in. If you're going to have 4 inches, maybe you have 2 inches of binder and 2 inches of class 2 on the top to finish costs on the thing, whatever you're requiring on the thing. That's what it is on it. Now, prior to doing any of that, the first thing the contractor does is go down and gets the gravel, all set to grade, everything, all set for paving. Now, this is what this addressed, the way that should be properly done by the contractor. It's his responsibility, and he isn't following through on it. He's simply saying, well, that's not my job. Yes, it is. And this should be written into the contract on a thing. When a manhole frame is considered too low, you put riser rings. They make a 1-inch ring, a 1.5-inch ring, and a 2-inch ring. And the town of Enfield should get themselves a supply of those rings from the supplier that supplied the manhole covers. They also have these rings. You could have a good supply so the contractor says, well, I haven't got any right now. You expect him to go buy them. Well, okay, no excuse. We've got them in the yard. Go pick them up, put them in. But these will be done. And if the people that work with paving in there aren't that familiar with paving and some of these things, how do you determine when to put a ring in, when not to put a ring in? I would be more than happy to talk to somebody about that and explain to them, sit down and explain to them how that situation works on it. But if they come to the manhole that is relatively high, no such thing as a manhole being too high. You read on over here, the gravel area, at least 8 feet in diameter, which isn't big. The manhole frame is, you're looking at, it's 2 feet. So you're talking about from the center of there, 4 feet in each direction, make a circle. That is set, if you're 4-inch paving, that is set at 4 inches all the way around and compacted by a hand compactor. That will not be changed. It'll be 4 inches when you are done. And in between this manhole, 300 feet down at the next manhole, you'll read the continuity is very important in between. You don't get dips and gullies. A good contractor will have his material, whatever gravel you're requiring, that's your responsibility. Whatever gravel you're requiring, that will have a smooth movement from one manhole to the other. It will be graded every time that the box is put in. Every 8 feet that paving machine is put in. If they want to go 12 feet, that's fine. 1 inch for every 8 feet. So if he's going to use a 12-inch, he puts in a crown of 1.5 inch so that you get a round road. You don't get a road like this. You should have a crown in the box. And most of them use the 12-foot box on it. And they can put out the 4 feet on either side, but sometimes whatever they want to do. But for every 8 feet, there should be a 1-inch crown, and it should be required when the paving is being done. That should be a requirement. So with that being said, if this procedure is followed, you will have a very nice looking street when you're done on a thing. And I want to point out again that on over on Rocket Run, opposite number 6, someone had better address that because you're going to have a hole in the manhole. Where the manhole is, you're going to have a road, and you're not going to have a manhole. It's flat. And it's been that way for years. And so I wish somebody would point out that that should be definitely addressed opposite number 6, Rocket Run. If you have any questions of me, I'd be glad to answer anything that I have there. If you have any questions about anything I have there, be my guest, and I will give you an answer.
We don't, for our public hearings, we don't have question and answer back
Right.
and forth. Council may have a question, or perhaps staff would like to sit down with you and
I'd be-
soak your knowledge out.
I would be more than pleased to come over to the town of Enfield whenever you want. I'm retired, and I would be more than glad to come over anytime at all and offer my assistance, cost you nothing. Be more than happy to do
Like
it.
nothing.
You have a good evening.
Thank you very much, Mr. McCarthy. I have Mr. Gregory next, followed by Mr. Sheridan, then the gentleman in the white shirt. And then the gentleman in the hat, number 4.
Ronald Gregory Sr., 444 Taylor Road, Enfield, Connecticut. I would like to reiterate what this gentleman just said also about the manhole covers. I travel extensively through town daily. They just did Raffia Road, and that was one of the things that I was going to bring up, especially tonight. They just did it, all right, and there's 3 or 4 of those manhole covers. They're like 1.5 inches deep. You hit that with the front end of your vehicle, and you throw your front end all out of whack. And I would say there's 1 in 4 manhole covers in this town, all right? And I've gotten a couple of dirty looks from police officers because I'm trying to avoid these. And so I'm, a little bit swerving, out of the way to try to avoid one of these things. I've got a heavy-duty pickup truck, and, I hit one of these things, and, man, I'll tell you, it just go whack. And as I said, I travel extensively through town, and, there's so many of them. I would say, like I said, 1 in 4, I believe, need to have adjustment, all right, to make those manhole covers more even with the pavement. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Jack.
Jack Sheridan, 7 Buchanan Road. I'll start with my driveway. Fixed Buchanan Road about, 2 years ago. I had a brand-new driveway at the time. Now I have a crack. Every winter, as much money and as much time as I spend fixing the crack, it heaves up and opens up. There's weeds growing in it now. I put weed killer in it to try and kill the weeds. This is a driveway that was brand new, less than a year old when they changed this thing, and they cut up into the driveway, and it never bonded to the original driveway. So now there's a rut happening as the water erodes underneath it. And then I wanted to know what I guess we're going to talk about that in a while, but is this just for the roads?
Yes, yep.
Okay. Was it said, and I didn't catch it, 50 million over what, 5 years?
Matt, the total?
It's 60 million over 5 years, 10 million on the collectors and arterials, and 50 million on local.
How come they said on the presentation 50 million total?
It's 60, and I think the slide you're referring to is just on the locals, didn't address the arterials. I think that was on the slide before that.
The arterials was 10.
Total of 60.
Over how many years total? 5? Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Gentleman in the white shirt, followed by the gentleman in the hat in the back, and then anyone else in the gray shirt.
My name is Dave Wilson. I'm from Moon Street in Enfield, 20-year Enfield resident, and I'll try to be very brief and to the point. I want to thank you very much for all your time and the time that the DPW is putting into the roads here. I do have some concerns, though. I've attended multiple town meetings in the past, and I've also submitted many C-Click Fix requests, as has already been mentioned tonight. Back around 2004, they had a roads project. Moon Street was rated around 46 PCI rating, which was red, which meant complete restoration at that time. Things have been done over many years. We were promised that in 2007, the road would be totally reconstructed, and it wasn't. We were promised in 2010 it would be done, and it wasn't. We were promised again in 2013 that it would be done, and it wasn't. And then we were promised they didn't get it done in 2013, so it would be done in 2014, and again, it still is not done. There's a lot of potholes. It's very dangerous. There's open cracks. There's loose gravel. You can't safely run, ride a bike, kids, driving cars, whatever. Multiple times I've had my car fixed with front end alignments because of potholes in that area and hitting them. There's about 19 houses on Moon Street, and at the assumption of about $5,000 a year in taxes, that's $95,000 in town revenue income for just 1 year for one street. My home alone, since I've lived there, has produced approximately $80,000 in town taxes, and yet there's still no road restoration. 20 years we've lived on this road. My question is two questions. The first one is, why isn't Moon Street on the list for roads to be done in 2014? And I notice it's on a list, but that just says a proposal for 2015, which means it could be another 5 years postponement. And my second question is, how are the priorities for road restoration established? I appreciate the presentation from DPW at the beginning, but the rumors I've heard throughout town residents is the worst is not first, and I question that logical and fiscally unsound advice. If my home foundation is cracked, I wouldn't go fix the sidewalk. I would fix the foundation because that carries it longer. Not correctly prioritizing long overdue road repairs continues to jeopardize safety of the residents, may result in town lawsuits, as has already been mentioned, because of personal injury or property damages. I just would appreciate an answer to those two questions. Why isn't Moon Street on the list? When is it going to be done? And how are they properly prioritized? Because in my estimation, as well as the rest of the residents on our street, being told in 2007, 2010, 2013, every 3 years it keeps getting pushed out. It's going to be done, it's going to be done, it's going to be done, and it's still not done. I would appreciate an answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Followed by gray shirt, followed by gray shirt.
Ladies and gentlemen, before I sit down, is this strictly for road repairs here?
This is a public hearing on the road referendum. When the council meeting begins, there'll be a public communication section for any other issue.
Oh, mine is not for roads.
Then we need you to hold off to the regular meeting of the council.
When will that be, sir?
Well, it's scheduled to start at 7, but it will start as soon as this public hearing's over.
Okay, I'll wait till then.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Followed by Lucian, followed by gentleman next to him. Yeah.
Hi, everybody. Brent Cizik, 20 Pease Street. I've actually lived on Pease Street now for about 7.5 years. And when we moved in, Pease Street was in good shape, in fact, far better than the road that adjoins Pease that our house is on the corner of, which is Garden. And Pease has been in pretty good shape. I'm actually a little surprised to see Pease on the 2015 list. Not that I'm complaining, mind you. I think that the reason it's on the list may be because of some of the water company work that was done recently. there have been some issues with the pavement where the water company had dug up the road. We got some nice dips and holes and things like that, but they weren't there prior to the water company work. So I guess an aside for me would be to say, if the water company did a really horrible patch job, and the sidewalk where they kind of tore to get to the water main for my house is probably another good example, they may be some folks you may want to follow up with as far as, paying for a little bit of the work on P Street. But actually, I'm curious. I have a question, actually, more regarding Garden Street. By all counts, I've got more frontage on Garden than I even do on Pease, and so while I do, appreciate some of the inverse speed bumps that we've got on Garden to keep traffic at a reasonable pace, I'm curious. I believe that Garden had been on roads 2010, and so my question then becomes. There was 84 million shown in the presentation earlier that mentioned how that hasn't been done yet. Well, what's the timeline look like? How do those other roads that are kind of in arrears, so to speak, how does that work? Like, when will those be done? Is there a timeline for those?
Brent, we have to answer it after the first round of the public hearing.
No problem. So I've one comment and then one other question. See-Click Fix has worked out well when there have been major road issues. So when the water company had done their work and there is water pouring out of the road, or there's major problems with sidewalks or whatnot, that's been very effective. So with regard to the roads and See-Click Fix, definitely appreciate that. And then the last thing that I have as a question would be, how does one see what your road rated on that scale of 1 to 100? Thank you.
Great, thank you, Brent. Lucian.
Lucian LeFave, 54 Kimberly Drive. First, I'd like to say thank you from our neighborhood. It looks like we're finally being addressed for the road repairs. I talked to your DPW people prior to the meeting, and I had the question of, there was a couple of streets that were left off of there, and I was shown a list for the remainder of Kimberly, Michael Nealon's, and Susan Circle that's supposedly going to be done with some 2010 money. My question for them to answer is, any place other than the list that you showed me? I'm the guy in the neighborhood that's going to be answering to our Facebook page, and I collected the names for getting us onto the roads 2015. So I just want to be able to tell people where to look for the answers that I'm going to put up there after tonight's meeting. So, and again, thank you for addressing our issues in that neighborhood finally.
Lucian, can you just repeat the streets that you're questioning?
The remainder of Kimberly from Sam to Michael,
Yeah.
Michael Drive, Nealon's Road, and Susan Circle.
Okay. Thank you.
I just want to know where else to look that up, so when people question me, I can give them a good answer. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
George Young, Holly Lane. I tried to summarize what I wanted to say, rather than go through this whole pile here, but I want to start off with the January 2014 DPW memo from the engineering department that indicates that Enfield's largest asset, our roads, should be preserved in a November 2014 town referendum. I think Enfield's largest asset is our taxpayers, the tax-paying citizens, probably not the roads, because we're not getting our bang for our dollar, and I'm going to go through that in a second. For one, I think you need to reevaluate what roads are going to be done, and I'm glad you set up this meeting to consider doing just that. I want to specifically address my street, which is Holly Lane, whose length is about 1,000 and has a PCI rating of 50. And according to the information you published, it would cost less than $300,000 to do the reclamation of it. According to your report on the Enfield Road Inventory, that's the March 2014 2014 report. We have 13 houses on the street, which has had no work done to it since it was built in 1970. I know that because that was when I had my house built there, and I have lived there ever since. The neighbors have made great improvements to maintain the neighborhood value, which has benefited the town in higher and higher assessments and obviously tax revenue. The 13 houses on the street are assessed at $1.9 million, and we pay real estate taxes of approximately $50,000 this year. We also pay fire district taxes on the house. In addition, we pay taxes on our cars to the town and the fire district. We're not getting the bang for our dollar in improvements from the town that we deserve. You're proposing to redo roads around us, and you previously did Terrace Circle, which is a cul-de-sac, which is the only street that runs off of Holly Lane. Hopefully, it was not just done because the fire chief lives on that street. I don't know. But I would certainly look at a lot of other streets who have a PCI rating much higher than ours that are getting done. And hopefully, there's no undue influence from anywhere else. As previously mentioned, our PCI is 50, and like I said, the numbers don't justify when you're in the neighborhood looking at our street and you're doing streets around us that are higher. So I'd like you to take another look at our street, and it's concave, unsafe sidewalk, and it's not sidewalks, it's only one sidewalk. It's on my side of the street. I have to clean it, but it's concave, and in the wintertime, it's very difficult with a snow blower, as you know, has a front edge that's straight across, but the pavement is not straight across, okay? It leads to ice, it leads to bad conditions, unsafe, and when elderly people are walking along, or people that have trouble walking, I'm afraid they're gonna fall down in front of my house, or the 50 feet that's in between my house and the next house, which belongs to the town. Well, I say it belongs to the town, but I've been maintaining it, my neighbor's been maintaining it for the last 44 to 45 years, okay? So I would think that while the equipment's in the area and you're doing all the other roads in the area, that you would at least take a look at our street, because you're doing Ridge Road, and for some reason, you're only going up to, I think it's 1,000 feet short of Sunrise Circle from St. James up to Ridge. You're doing another street in the neighborhood that I know has been done before, yet ours isn't getting done. And maybe while the equipment and the manpower is in the neighborhood, you could take another look and maybe you could redo our street. I don't know. But I certainly think someone should really look at this and not just say it's a number, PCI number. And it is a number, 50. It should have been done by now, okay? Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Public hearing for the first time? Matt, can we get some of the questions addressed?
Yes, we can. And apparently John will be answering all the questions here.
No, taking them all, but some of them we can't answer. The first one we can answer is
Do you have a specific order you want to go in, or? should we-
Well, did you take notes from speaker one down to our final speaker?
we did.
So I'd say go ahead and just at your
Top
pleasure.
to bottom.
Okay, I guess the first speaker was Mr. Moriarty, and his basic question was, why isn't Cedar Drive on the list? That has a PCI of 63. The previous was 50, and he said, how did it magically increase? And the answer to that question at this point is, we're not sure. PCIs don't increase unless you do something to treat the road. So it's possible that the previous rating was incorrect. It's possible that the current rating is incorrect. we need to look at that. But the overall question of why not Cedar Drive is, as we, I realize the public that's here tonight doesn't have the benefit of all the information that council's received from us over the past about 14 or 15 months. But there's a backlog of well over $100 million worth of work that needs to be done right now. And the town cannot afford to do all that work right now. So with a $60 million program, there are streets that are just not going to get done. The council directed us to include all of the streets that had been shown on previous lists in this program, and that's what the program that you see, in addition to some others. But the short answer is, sadly, we can't do everything. A related question was, if I may go out of order, a related
Yeah, go ahead.
question was asked later, or a comment was made that the approach, the pavement management approach that we've been talking about for the last over a year is misguided, and that we should be basically fixing the worst roads first. And I hope that council understands, after we've talked about it a number of times, I'm sure that you do, that that's wrong. That is the exact wrong approach to use if we want to use our money in the best manner and get the most value for the dollar. The next question I wrote down, and I guess you can interrupt me if I go out of order. Why isn't Moon Street on the 2014 list? Because it was shown on a previous list. And the short answer to that is we don't have enough money to do it. And that's why the list that's on the wall is composed of mostly roads that were included on previous lists but have not been done, because the programs just simply ran out of money before all the roads could be done. One question I wrote down was, why are we working on Pease Street? It's relatively good condition. One of the things that we did to simplify these lists is to leave off the treatment that we think needs to be done at this point in time. So not all those roads are slated for total reconstruction. Some are slated for treatments other than total reconstruction. In the case of Pease Street, the current PCI is 88, and we just intend to do routine maintenance on that road. We have tried to do low-cost routine maintenance, such as crack sealing and patching, because following the pavement management philosophy, it's more cost-effective for us to keep Pease Street in good condition by doing those rather low-cost treatments than it is to wait for it to decline and get to the point where it needs to be totally reconstructed at many times the cost.
And if I could, the other question was about Garden related to that, and that is actually on the Thompsonville South program for this year.
Yes, that was the next one I wrote down.
Also Rocket Run as well.
The next question I wrote down is, where can the residents see all of the ratings that were done previously this year? That has been posted online on the website for some time. We also gave copies to the council. But if they don't have access to the internet, certainly they can come into our engineering office or call us, and we can provide that information. And finally, the last one I wrote down is, where can we see the list of that contains the remainder of Kimberly, Michael, Nealon's, and Susan Circle? And I think we handed that list out to council in one of their meetings, but I'm not sure we ever posted that, so we can certainly post that as well.
I think you hit most of them.
What are the others?
So I have a couple that I wrote down that Mr. Moriarty asked about curb appeal impact on value, and that might not be for
Yeah,
you folks
we-
to answer.
We don't have the experts.
Mr. McCarthy and the manhole at 6 Rocket Run. I suppose that you've noted it and you're going to take a look at it.
Yes.
Rocket Run's part of the road reconstruction 2014 program. That whole entire street's going to be redone.
Okay. The gentleman from Moon Street, how are priorities established? And I believe it's probably in the context of, all right, we have a listing up on the board for 2015. How are the priorities within the proposed project established?
Okay, at this point in the formulation of the program, we have not established priorities, but the schedule would be based on a couple major factors. One is any utility work that is planned to be done in the next few years would determine the schedule of the road work. Obviously, goes without saying that we don't want to schedule a street for 2016 if the water company or the gas company is planning to put in a new main down that street the following year. So we coordinate our schedules with the utility companies to try to avoid, to the extent possible, them tearing up the road for at least 5 years after we pave them. So that's one factor. Another primary consideration is geographic. We try to group road projects together somewhat geographically, if we can, to minimize the cost of the contract, frankly. Because if the contractor has to do a road in the northeast corner of town and then the next one's in the southwest corner of town, there's an additional cost to the contractor for mobilization, demobilization of his equipment, and that cost obviously is paid for by the town through his bid. So those are the two primary factors.
Okay. What's that? How do you address manholes being at the right elevation?
Well, we certainly try. Coincidentally, before the meeting, we were discussing that topic because it's always been sort of a pet peeve of mine. And so I was talking about that with my colleagues and saying that, you know, I sort of drive my wife bonkers at times because every place we drive, I'm looking at details of recent paving projects and noticing those sorts of things. And manholes being much too low is one of my pet peeves. So we recognize that it can be a problem, and we will try to do more to address it.
Okay, before we get to questions, I did receive 6 comments from a resident who, due to a surgery, was unable to attend. But I do want to read these in. I've already forwarded them to Public Works, so if we can get an answer back, that would be appreciated. And some of them are have already been brought up. Has a priority list been developed for the roads shown as local streets? What information will be used to develop that priority list? And that was the question that you just answered. What is the plan for those local streets in terms of the work to be performed? Proposed list only states entire length. And I believe that's what type of work would be done on the roads. Taylor Road is shown in 2 places, local streets and arterial collectors. Under local streets, the from to columns show entire length, while arterials collectors show specific areas. The total length of the specific areas is greater than the entire length shown under local streets. Why is that? Some streets shown under ancillary list of potential street, unquote, have recently been repaved. What is the intent for these roads? Example, Sheridan and Putnam Lane. Several streets listed as local streets are in the Green Manor area. Some of these streets were initially installed directly abutting the sidewalk on both sides of the street. It was determined in the 1980s that those streets would have the sidewalks on one side removed, and when the road was redone, the road would be shifted to provide for a tree belt on the sidewalk side. Is this plan included in the 2015 roads proposal? And finally, it would appear, based on the information from Roads 2015 presentation, May 28, 2014 pavement condition rating dated March 2014, and Enfield Town Council proposed road program that Enfield is proposing utilizing referendums to perform routine maintenance. Routine maintenance of these streets is shown in the PCI rating list, and the streets are shown on the ancillary list of the 2015 possibilities. Examples are Putnam Lane, Douglas Road, Sheridan Road with PCI ratings of 90, 89, and 88 respectively. These roads were completely replaced as part of Roads 2005. Is Enfield going to fund routine maintenance through the referendums? If so, why is there a highway division with a stated mission, in part, quote, maintenance of public roadways, unquote, with a $1.9 million budget? This budget total includes snow and ice removal, etc. What does routine maintenance consist of with respect to these example roads? So in his email back to him, we can respond via email to the gentleman. Okay? Questions of staff before we go to round two? Carol?
Just a quick question. The document that Mr. McCarthy shared this evening in regards to the potholes, this question may be better suited for Kevin. Is that something that we put in our contracts right now for when we contract with these road companies? Do we have a blurb like he provided us? Maybe staff would know.
I don't have that answer right now, but I'll certainly take a look, and I had written that down when he did his presentation on that.
Yeah, because it seems like a logical and common sense approach for the contracts
Could you
to have
address
something like that.
how that is in our contracts, what our
It would
boilerplates
be
are?
that's a technical specification, what I looked at briefly that he gave us, so that's something we can use in the next
We
contract
do have language
round.
in there that states that the manholes have to be set to line and grade of the road, of the final finished pavement or finished grade of the road.
Okay.
So,
So that's in the specs we send out.
yes.
And if
It may-
it's-
it may not be exactly worded the way that this one was worded, but we
Yeah.
can certainly.
Yeah, take a look.
Okay.
Maybe you
Yep.
need to revisit that. You did get six Rocket Run. He talked about that specific pothole, that specific.
Rocket Run's being
Okay.
That's all part of that
Man-
road reconstruction
For
of
this
Bond,
year.
Rocket, part of Ridge.
Yeah, I
Kimberly-
think he
part of
was
Kimberly Island.
talking to that specific manhole cover in front of that house. I
But it's,
mean,
when we go by, it'll be.
yeah,
it'll be
just check
corrected.
it, because obviously we have issues with the ones on Raffia already that never got addressed, so. I think that was, the PCI rating. It seems like some of the old ratings may be different. Can you give us an idea? I obviously don't expect you to do it right now, but can you take a look at the previous PCI ratings on the roads and see if we're going to be running into a lot of people looking at those going, geez, it was much lower and now it's higher? I mean, like Mr. Moriarty and I think the gentleman on Holly mentioned it too. So I'd just be curious to go through the list and see if any of those have changed, and if that's going to be a problem. It's something we need to look at before we start prioritizing roads, is my thought. I had one more and I can't think of what it was. It'll come to me when you guys start talking. So.
Ed?
Do we have a supply of rings for manholes, and is that something we're gonna start looking into? Because I think a lot of the problems all over, even like on Brainerd Road that we're gonna resurface in Washington, all those manholes are lower than the surface. And so I think we should,
As part of Brainerd Road, as part of the pavement preservation program that's out now, the contractor is responsible for raising them, and indeed, we do have the contractor is responsible, they do have the rings appropriate for that, for the streets, that we're milling and overlaying, they do have the rings available. That's been addressed through the contract.
All set? Go to the second round. If there's anyone in the audience that would, has any additional questions or comments? Jack? I'm all alone. Look at, on television.
Jack Sheridan, 7 Buchanan Road. I'd probably jog your memory, Carol. It was probably the crack in my driveway you were trying to remember. That's what it was.
That's right, the bond, that was the bonding between the driveway apron and an existing.
Don't want to repave, I want the crack fixed.
Public hearing. Mr. Moriarty.
Steve Moriarty, still at 24 Cedar Drive in Enfield, Connecticut, that needs to be repaved. We didn't answer the question about property values, the curb appeal, excuse me, and the effect on the assessment. I would like an answer on that. And also, since this still hasn't been approved yet, what remedy does the citizens have, excuse me, to try to get their street on this list? I've seen in the past people come in here in numbers, such as the people from the Buckhorn section, because a lot of people didn't know where that was until these people started showing up. I always knew that as the Nealons, but now we know, and their stuff is getting done. Yesterday I posted something on Facebook about Southwood Acres being the second best place in Connecticut to live. It is a nice place, and a nice place needs nice roads. Cedar Drive still needs to be repaved. And once again, Cedar Drive still needs to be repaved. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve Moriarty of Cedar Drive.
That needs to be repaved.
That needs to be repaved. Yes, sir. This is on the road, this is a public hearing on roads. Come on up.
Hi, my name is Daniel Audette. I live at 5 Grant Street, also known as Grant Avenue, not known as Grant Road. If you look at the PCI index, our street is 5 Grant Street, which is right off near Alcorn School. It's basically waiting for a major accident to come down the line. Either kids going down on their bikes, they go down the road. It's pothole city. They just finished doing the sewer and water upgrades for CPW. The understanding at that time was they were going to repave our area. All they did is that little strip they replaced. When I called the town manager about this about a couple weeks ago, I was told that I should address this now. It looks like we've been forgotten over the years. Washington was done, Pease was done, all those areas were done except Grant Street or Grant Avenue, depending on which town map you look at. I believe that may be one of the reasons why we're not on this list. Again, I'd like to you guys, for the little that is there, there's erosion problem. My property being at the bottom, all the water comes down the hill. I put up my own timbers, all that stuff, but the snow plows do seem to love them in the winter. And I'm sure the town is not happy when they hit it. I think it's something that somebody should really look at. Our PCI rating is lower than a lot of roads that are being bonded here. I think it was a simple oversight. I welcome all of you to drive down that short little street and see what's out there. That's it.
Thank you. Public hearing. Yes, sir.
Dave Wilson on Moon Street again. Just had a couple of comments on the C-Click fix is definitely working good. And I know that when we call in for potholes and repairs, they're right out there and they take care of it. What happens though is a month or two later, as always does, they break up and now you've got all this loose gravel. So I don't know if there's a plan that could be in place to continually monitor or follow up on that to clean up that loose gravel. And the other question I had was the rumor that was on our street about worst not first. Now, I heard the gentleman say that that was the wrong concept to take. I didn't hear an explanation of why, and the majority of residents on our street are saying that defies all logic. If the base foundation and the structure's falling apart, why would you go do something else of lesser value? So I don't understand that. Maybe it could be explained better, and hopefully when I go back I can tell the rest of the people on our street why that approach is being taken, because to me it defies logic. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Dave. Public hearing, anyone else? So we'll answer the couple of questions. I want to address Mr. Wilson on the worst, not first. But Public Works, you guys can come up because there's a couple of questions for you. And this is more of to give you folks an idea of how we came up with the items on the streets on the list. Definitely Public Works philosophy, what they presented to us was a very systematic, numeric approach to maintain or raise the PCI. Council didn't agree with that approach. Council said it makes sense, but there are the worst roads that were out there on the lists in 2000, 2005, 2010 that were not addressed. So I believe this council feels that this referendum is a combination of going on the systematic approach to help raise the PCI, and we see that more in the main roads. But in the residential streets, you see the promises in the past of the worst roads getting done. Again, we're limited in what we can spend. This referendum is a stretch. All previous referendums have been in the $25 million, $27 million range. We're asking you to bond $60 million. Double, more than double. So again, and I think we all feel it's a stretch, but to keep the faith in the roads program, and not every road's going to get done, we understand that. If we had a blank check and we could write a check for $100 million and say, go ahead and do these roads, we'd do it. But also we have to put our political hat on to say, how can a referendum get approved by the voters overall? You need a majority out there to say, yes, continue on this program of addressing roads. So I would say your neighborhood streets, the council said we need to get back to that worst first, because they were part of those lists in 2005 and 10, and they weren't done. Now, we know, like Mr. Audette, there's some roads out there that were probably missed, and we'll go back and we'll have them look at it and see what the issue is. So, but we also look at the experts that are saying it costs a lot more money to have to reclaim a road. So you don't want to get that, like your example of a foundation. You would never allow your foundation to get a crack in it because you would repair it, so you'd keep a good foundation. So there's some of that work that still needs to get done on that general maintenance, so that those PCIs that we invested in, or those roads we invested in the last 15 years, that we haven't spent that money for nothing. So it's a combination, but I'd say on your main roads, your South roads, your Phoenix Avenues, your Brainerd roads, that is more of that maintenance and preservation to keep the PCIs high. It's the most heavily traveled roads in town. But inside the neighborhoods, their proposal was to do a lot of different roads. But we didn't feel as a council that we could sell it to you. Moon is on the list. Moon may not have been on the first list. And then you would be here asking an entirely different question. Why isn't it on the list? So we've taken that worse first combination, and that's what you're seeing in the neighborhoods. So it is, now again, it's a 5-year period too. So some of the worst are going to get done in year 1, and some of the worst are going to get done in year 5. But it's a plan that addresses, we feel, the worst roads that are out there, because they were promised in the first 3 installments. And I hope I answered your question.
Thank you.
I know Joey wants to comment about the new machine that's in town that can address your first question. And then Carol said she's going to take a stab at curb appeal. And then we'll go to these guys for technical stuff unless you've got.
I'll reply.
Okay. So go ahead, Joey, on the.
Well, we just purchased a new pothole patcher. And what's going to happen is it's now going to spray an emulsion in there. And they're going to spray gravel right into the crack. So it's going to actually make, or the pothole, it's going to actually make brand new blacktop. And the repair is supposed to be stronger than the area repaired as it is. So you shouldn't be having gravel popping out of them anymore. The nice part about this is it works in the cold. So in the middle of winter, when we keep going out there, putting cold patch in a hole, and 3 hours later, someone's calling because it all got blown out, shouldn't happen anymore. We should be able to go fix the road. And there were a couple different things they tried, and some of it was spidering, and they were able to go actually patch over. So once they start filling the holes, you may find that they can do more with it than what you even can expect, and it should greatly increase some of the roads now from here on, because now they can go fix the potholes and they'll be permanent. And I guess they just got it, a week ago, and they're out there practicing now. So as soon as they get that figured out, we may be able to make a new Moon Street instead of repaving it. But the big thing is, really, it's going to be up to you guys. You have to sell this referendum. It's a lot of money, but if you don't sell it to your neighbors and friends and everybody else, we can only go so far on a referendum. It has to be the residents that sell this referendum. And if you don't sell it, there's no one to blame, because we tried. But it's up to you to sell this referendum, and you guys only.
But we'll be there with you. We're not going to leave it just on you. It's all of us.
But mainly,
together.
it's the residents. I mean, if you can't get your neighbor to say, I got a new road, I don't want it, I don't want my taxes going up, or I may not get my road done, so I'm not gonna vote for this. But ultimately, we all drive down different streets, and if we don't try it, maybe you won't get done. They say we're going to get done, but at least 90% of the town's going to be much better. So you're going to have to go out there and help sell it. And we'll be here too.
And to put the number in context, the number that the council is allowed to spend before a referendum is in that $500,000 to $600,000 range in 1 year. So you've got before you a $60 million referendum. And if you break it down equally in 5 years, that's $12.5 million worth of work each year. So $12.5 million per year if you approve the referendum, $500,000. What's that?
Just 12.
Just 12, okay. 12 million, sorry. I thought we put money in on the side.
No, it's
Okay.
It's the total.
All right, so 12.
Yeah.
So my math isn't all that great. 12 million versus a half. And the list is $100 million long. So we know we can't go at this by just through the tax dollar, because that's $500,000 a year. We would be so far behind. We'd be coming back with another referendum. So the question is the number too high? Is the number too low? Are the priorities all wrong? Not everyone's going to agree on all the roads, and we can't do that, sir, you know that. But we thought we put together a fair proposal that addresses the roads that were previously on lists, promises that were made, but because of escalating costs, changing priorities, they didn't get done. But for us to ask you to bond $60 million, we felt we had to put that list on the referendum first before we could consider any other new roads. Carol, curb appeal, if you want to.
Well, I'll try to address it. I know Tom's going to disagree with me, but this is what I do for a living. So, unfortunately, bad roads don't devalue your property. They'll help sell your property if you have nice roads. And of course, we want to attract people to our town by having good roads for them to drive on. So as much as people want to say my assessment on my house should go down because the road in front of my house is terrible, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on where you're sitting at the time, it doesn't affect the value of your home. So it does help in curb appeal, absolutely. People like to see that you've got a beautiful road in front of your house and that it's going to be a maintenance-free, easygoing stretch, but it certainly doesn't bring down your property value. So that's my spiel. And I do want to add something to what Scott said. During the discussion, because we were up here for the first roads referendums and we were there when the promises were made for all the other referendums. And it was important to us as a body, and I know some people would disagree that sit on the council with this idea, but we felt it was really important to keep those promises that were made. Public Works disagreed with our philosophy at going at some of those worst roads, and we respect their opinion and how they came up with their recommendations, but we also felt that the public has to buy in, like Joey said, to this referendum. And past referendums, we've run short. Quite frankly, we've run out of money. So this is the biggest one we've put forth yet, and we're hoping you support it. And we thought it was a priority to get those previous roads that were promised that are quite honestly are atrocious done. So that's where we came at it from, and it was a tough decision because Public Works wanted to do things a little differently, and we felt it was important to the residents that have been waiting all those years to see those roads done. So that's it.
Tom?
Kind of disagree. And just the fact that an assessed value of a house is how the town assesses, it's always lower than the value you would get when you sell your house. And I'm not an appraiser, and maybe that's a question for a professional appraiser, but you know, that's how I view it. I view what the town assesses my house for and what I actually sell the house for is two different things. And my neighborhood counts in that. My road would count in that. How many and what town you're in. So that all counts in a value of your house. That's the way I look at it. So that's it. Thanks.
Cindy?
I just want to echo Carol, her synopsis on the curb appeal. And going back to the 2005 roads referendums, and Scott, you were here, I think Carol, you were here, and I was here. And I think the important message is that we need to win back the confidence of the taxpayers. Many of the roads that were promised repairs or overlays or work done have not been done, and that's unfortunate. And at this point in time, what we need to do is go back and make good. And like Carol did say, we did run out of funds, but now we need to go out and we need to actively sell this roads referendum so we can get the work done. And that's something that at this point is absolutely necessary. Thank you.
Thanks, Cindy. Ed?
Well, I'm a realist, so I'm gonna throw this out, and we've discussed this before. Just remember that $60 million, and in 2 years or 3 years, and there's another Middle East conflict, and the price of oil goes out of sight. It's a possibility that we won't be able to get all this done with that $60 million. So I'm just keep that in mind, and I think that's part of some of the problems that happened before, where we fell behind and we're out of money because of the cost of doing business.
Yeah, remember what you paid for gas 15 years ago versus what you pay today. Directly impacts the amount of road work that you can get done. Joey?
One thing real quick. The biggest complaint I get before the people get their street done is, my street is horrible. As soon as it's done, the second biggest complaint, the speeders. So once you get that new road done, the traffic is gonna speed up on it. So sometimes you gotta be careful for what you wish for, it just may come true. And you're gonna get the speeders, so that's all.
Joey drives a 1965 Corvette, by the way. So.
Folks from Public Works, any questions that you want to address that came up? I know Mr. Sheridan and the bonding between cut apron and the existing driveway. You know, is there a way to repair that or to ensure that there's not a gap?
There's a way to repair everything, but without looking at it, I don't think any of us are familiar with that particular situation, so we need to look at it, get back.
7 Buchanan Road. Writing it down. Is there anything else, John?
I did want to say about the driveway. I think Mr. Sheridan said his driveway was new. And when we know roads are listed, paving contractors that are doing driveways are supposed to come in and get a permit. If they do that on several occasions, I have let the property owner know, we're going to do your road, we're going to have to cut your driveway apron. If I know they've applied for, or they've had a contractor apply to do the driveway. So that's one way we try to avoid the situation that you were talking about. You did say your driveway was new?
A year or so.
A year or so. So if we know the road's gonna be done, we let the property owner know. We won't deny a permit, but we will let them know, and then they decide whether they wanna go forward with the driveway, and instead of having.
How does that fix my crack?
It can preclude having a new driveway cut as opposed to an old one. And we also have the same problem with driveways that are in disrepair, and we put new pavement on. You've seen driveways with the ruts. Now, when you try to pave up to that, and we have to match that. So, I mean, kind of works both ways. But I just wanted to mention that as far as people that are gonna have a new driveway done, if we know their street's gonna happen in the near future, we let them know and then have them decide whether they still wanna go through with it.
I wasn't told.
I understand that. I don't know whether the contractor would take out the permit, so we would contact the owner through that. So I don't know who did your driveway or if they got a permit. Who?
AFS.
AFS, okay.
Okay. Did you write down any questions? I know I had, Mr. Moriarty had mentioned remedy to get streets on the list. Contact your council member. It's the remedy. That's the remedy. And you've done it tonight, and we'll look at Cedar, so.
I'm sorry, does Cedar need to be repaved?
Did I miss anything? Tom, you had an additional comment?
No, I'm good.
Ed?
One thing that we did talk about with Public Works, and it's been a big problem in the whole town, is that your utility companies, when they repave and don't take the time to settle. But we have talked about that. There's a they'll probably answer the question better than I can or say it, but it's a flow thing that they're working on. Can you elaborate on that? And maybe that will eliminate some of the utility problems where when they're digging the road, they don't want to come back and for that to settle, and when it settles, we have problems. And I think we're going to address some of that.
flowable fill?
Yeah, you're referring to what we call flowable fill.
Do you want to explain?
I guess to explain what that is, it's a, well, I guess I would call a lean concrete mixture. So it's made, it comes from a batch plant in a concrete truck, and it's a very weak concrete. And they pour it into the trench, and the reason it's is used is because once they pour it in, it sets up rather quickly. It doesn't settle. Whereas the gravel that is traditionally placed back in the trench is difficult to compact, and over time it settles.
Okay, any further,
Just
Matt?
so to clarify, the total authorization council would be seeking is $60 million. $57.5 million would be bonded. So we're not looking to bond $60 million. It's only $57.5. Typically, the town provides $500,000 a year over 5 years to pay towards the, actually to reduce the overall
Got the
bonding. So,
12.5.
yes, I just wanted to clarify that so there was no misunderstandings.
Thanks for helping me out, Matt. All right. Is there a need for a round three? Mr. LaFay, come on up, Lucian.
Lucian LaFave, 54 Kimberly Drive. To go along with Joe's thing, to help us sell it to the public. $57 million bond. When the taxpayer asks, what's it going to cost me in taxes, additional taxes per year, and I know when you say you want to bond $57 million, they're going to say, what's the bottom line it's going to cost me? Can we get an answer on that in order to help sell this project?
He's got it right there. Well, after we've got to stick to our rules, but he'll answer it. Anyone else for the public hearing? Matt?
So, what I'm about to say, there's a lot of caveats to these numbers because, again, we can't tell you exactly what that interest rate is going to be when we go out into the marketplace. But at the highest point, the potential impact on the mill rate of this referendum is going to be approximately 2.26 mils. And again, that is sitting here today saying if there were no other things that we're doing to try to minimize that impact going forward, that would be what it would cost us to retire that debt over 20 years. Just to let you know that right now, going into 20, and this would hit us, by the way, in about 2021. Our debt retirement impact in 2021 on the mill rate is potentially 3.74. Then it peaks up at $4.02 the next year in 2022. But again, as council's aware, and hopefully the residents that have been following how we try to manage our debt servicing, we go out into the marketplace as other debt is starting to be retired. And in that 2020 to 2030 time period, we're going to start retiring quite a bit of the debt that was assembled because of the school projects earlier. We're going to see a number of the early roads programs start to come off. But unfortunately, because we're adding $35 million from the school project, plus the $25 million we're going out here very shortly into the marketplace for, there is going to be a peak, and potentially, we're going to be nearly doubling what our debt payments are regarding the impact on the mill rate. Now, what we're challenged to do is to try to fit this within what the cost structure is, and I think up to this point we've been very good at doing that. Where there really hasn't been, and I think you can admit, in the last 8 budgets we haven't come and said we have to raise the tax rate because of this. But again, not being able to know what circumstances we're going to be facing over the next 10 years, we have to be cognizant that could be could be an impact. And again, the worst case on this is that we're going to be seeing about a 2 mil impact over that 20-year period because of $60 million. But, we're going to do everything we can to try to reduce that.
All right, anyone else? Then I will close the public hearing, and thank you very much for your comments. Very much appreciated. And can I entertain a motion for a 5-minute recess?
Second.
Motion by Councilman Hall, second by Councilman Stokes. By show of hands, all those in favor? Those opposed? We'll be back in 5. Okay, I'd like to call the meeting back to order, and I would ask everyone in the audience to please stand for a prayer led by Councilman Gina Sakala, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear God, thank you on behalf of all those who gathered here this evening. Thank you for our many blessings and for the many freedoms we enjoy. Please grant us wisdom to govern amid the conflicting interests, views, and issues of our town. Grant us a sense of the true needs and welfare of the people, and grant us confidence to do what is good and fitting for our town. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Gina. And may we have roll call, please?
Councilman Sakala.
Present.
Councilman Denny.
Here.
Councilman Edgar. Councilman Hall.
Here.
Mayor Copeland.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Lee. Councilman Mangini.
Here.
Councilman Stokes.
Present.
Councilman Suzak.
Be
Here.
like you.
Councilman Arnone.
Here.
Hey, Scott.
Councilman Bosco.
Here. Behind you.
We have 9 members
Anyone?
present and 2 are absent.
Okay. Next is the fire evacuation announcement. Just remind our audience that in the event of a fire alarm sounding here at Town Hall, we all must evacuate the building. Closest exit would be to the rear of council chambers and out to the front of Town Hall. If you choose to go out the side door to your right or left, we then ask you to take the back set of the stairs to the back parking lot of Town Hall. Minutes of the preceding meetings, we've got 6 to approve. First is a special meeting of May 28th, 2014.
So moved.
Second.
By Councilman Arnone, seconded by Councilman Denny. Any discussion? Sensing none, by show of hands, all those in favor? Those opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous. Special meeting, June 23rd, 2014.
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Mangini, seconded by Councilman. Abstain. Councilman Bosco abstaining on May 28. All right, we had a motion for June 23rd by Councilman Mangini, seconded by Councilman Stokes. Discussion? By show of hands, all those in favor? Those opposed? Any abstentions? 2 abstentions. Special meeting, June 30th.
So moved.
By Councilman Mangini, seconded by Councilman Denny. Discussion, June 30. Show of hands, all those in favor. Those opposed, any abstentions? 2 abstentions. Bosco and Suzak. Special meeting, July 7th.
So moved.
By Councilman Mangini, seconded by Councilman Stokes. Discussion. Show of hands, all those in favor. Those opposed, any abstentions? Unanimous. Regular meeting, July 7th.
17th. Or
No, regular meeting, July 7th. Councilman Arnone, seconded by Councilman Stokes. Discussion. Show of hands, all those in favor. Those opposed, any abstentions? Unanimous. And the special meeting of July 17th. By Councilman Denny, seconded by Councilman Arnone. Discussion. Show of hands, all those in favor. Those opposed, any abstentions? So we have 3 abstentions, Bosco, Sakala, Mangini, and 6 in favor. All right, that completes minutes of the preceding meetings. We now move to our special guest section of the agenda, and I'd like to welcome up Zachary Boyer for a presentation on his Eagle Scout project. Welcome, Zachary.
So my name is Zachary Boyer. I'm from Troop 888 in Enfield, Connecticut, sponsored by the Elks Lodge. I'm here to talk about my Eagle Scout presentation, or proposal. So currently the dog park uses a plastic Rubbermaid footlocker to store all of their materials and tools that volunteers bring in, like rakes and stuff like that. And because of the seclusion in the area, it's pretty isolated over there. It keeps getting broken into, and all of the tools that volunteers spend their money on are constantly being stolen. So they want a theft-proof security shed. So the rough basics of it, roughly 8 foot by 10 foot, and raised on solid cement blocks and just theft-proof with a steel door, no windows, stuff like that. This is the design that I came up with and what the dog park sort of approved. So that's pretty much what I've been basing my designs off so far. So, in terms of costs, it'll just be over $1,000. So.
And Zachary's looking for a consensus approval from the council to proceed forward?
Yeah, the way, there's two things, and I have to check the site plan to see if there's anything on there right now. So this could have to go to P&Z for their site plan approval for a modification. But because the way that the lease is written, whenever they change anything there, they have to come and ask us for permission. I have the ability to sign the modification that was granted as part of the original okay or agreement between the town and the dog park committee. And so obviously I want you to be aware that they're looking to do this and see if there's any issues you have, because if there is, then obviously I wouldn't be able to do that modification.
Okay. Cindy?
I think it's great because I'm familiar with that box that they have, and it's unfortunate all the people are volunteers. A couple of questions that I have. One, the unit that you're going to build is going to be secure, and you're going to have a lock or a code so that the volunteers can get in. Is that how it's going to work?
Yes.
Okay. And then the second question, $1,000, are you looking for that money from contributions, or how are you going to get that money together?
So far, I've done 2 fundraisers. I've done a car wash and a pancake breakfast, and I've fundraised enough to purchase the materials as of right now. And right now, just the rest would come from donations.
So would people make donations payable to the dog park, or how would money get to you for this project?
It would be Troop 888, where I'm from, and then that would get passed over to me. So.
Okay. So people can write a check to Troop 88. Excellent.
Thank you.
Wonderful project. Thank you.
Do you have a email address or something where people that could be watching this right now that might be interested to reach out to you?
Yeah, my email right now is boyerzr@att.net, so BOYERZR@att.net. Or through the dog park, they can also contact me.
Great.
Excellent.
Tom?
Yeah, great. I'm all for it.
Thank you.
Great price, too. You can probably come over to my house and get one for $1,000. Both my oldest sons were Troop 8-8ers. Nice to see you up here, new generations. It's great to see. Matt, we discussed, too, I know we've upped some patrols in that area, too, just to try to combat some of this vandalism. I know they've had some complaints in the past. When you get a chance, too, could you maybe give me an update on that light we're looking for? That's it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Further questions, comments? Where is this going to be located within the dog park itself?
So after talking with the dog park, they are kind of wanting it towards the, if you're looking at it head on, it's like the right corner. There's an empty spot over there that they tend to want it over there.
So in the large dog section, which is the right side, in the far back right corner?
Outside the fence.
Oh, outside the fence. Okay.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. So where we piled the wood chips at the beginning. Okay.
That's a good place.
Any further questions? So consensus of the council. Zachary, good luck with the project. Thanks for adding something new to the dog park, and continued good luck on your venture towards Eagle Scout. So,
thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is public communications. Matt, does Zachary need to sign it? You need to sign anything? Or
Not right
are you
now.
going to?
Yeah, Derek will be in contact with him to help him through that.
Perfect. Okay, great, thanks. Next item is public communications and petitions. If there's anyone in the audience that wishes to address the council, I will call on you, and you will be first. Please come on up. State your name and address for the record. Please keep your comments to no more than 5 minutes. If you hit that 4:30 mark, I will politely interrupt and tell you to wrap up. And we ask that you please refrain from the use of personalities. Welcome.
My name is William Martin. I live at 114 Windsor Street. And
Welcome.
I'm here to talk about, I'm retired from the service. I'm on a fixed income. And my taxes went up on me for my property, $20, which I can't afford. And I paid my taxes on my automobile. They charged me $79 for fire tax on my automobile. Now, that they spend millions of dollars on a new firehouse that they really don't need. All they had to do is do a little renovation on the old one and save money. I can't afford these taxes that they're putting on me. They're putting us poor senior citizens in the poorhouse. We just can't afford this stuff. And, I fought for my country for 20 years. I was over in Vietnam, and I contracted Agent Orange. There's no cure. And I'm in pain 24 hours a day. I just got to have some help from this town to help me out on some of these taxes. They got to give us something to get up there and realize that they're giving us something back for what we done. Now, the people here, I don't know if some of you gentlemen have been in the service, but when I joined the service, I was getting $12 a month, $6 every 2 weeks. When I retired from the service, I was making $13,000 a year. Now, you people were here, and the rest of the service people that were over there fighting to keep this country safe were making nice big money. And now it's time, I think, to start paying back the senior citizens and the servicemen that give so much to keep this country free. And that they're now just disregarding us like we never even exist. I thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Public communications? Anyone else? Jack?
Jack Sheridan, 7 Buchanan Road. My driveway cracked. I was wondering what the status of the changes to the town charter was and if that was going to be discussed tonight. I think tonight was the date that I had. And the other thing was what happened to the playscape over there on South Road? Were we able to find somebody that we could donate that thing to? I hate to think that maybe you disposed of it. And the other question was the Henry Barnard School. I know we had Siemens in there and they put a new boiler in and did some other changes and so-called improvements. I was wondering what our experience in that process was, whether it was a positive experience, whether we gained anything from it, and I'd like to know what that status is. That's it, thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Public communications? Daniel?
Daniel Audette, 5 Grant Street. In regards to the water upgrades that were done in our neighborhoods, Grant, Washington, Pease, and all that, the contractors ripped up a lot of the sidewalks to make the final connections. We have not gotten any notice as to when they're going to come back and pour back the cement. All we have now is blacktop, basically temporary. There's been some settling, again, possible trip hazards. Question is, how long do we have to wait till they repair the concrete on our side? They did our connections last year, and basically at the very end of the fall, and some were finished early this spring. We're now going to school, Labor Day, starting up. School's going to be starting shortly. Do they have any intents of repouring the concrete back, again, on the sidewalks that we had there before? Which then also leads into the paving of 5 Grant Street, which is, according to your index, really, really bad. And it's also an area where you have kids going down the street, liability issues. You've been warned. Thank you.
Thanks, Daniel. Public communications? Anyone else? Thank you very much. Councilman communications, Councilman Stokes?
For Mr. Martin, thank you for coming this evening, and appreciate your service. I was also in the Navy and during the Vietnam era, and so the reason why I just want to make sure that you know that in town we do have some property tax exemptions and assistance, or for those that were in during different conflicts. And since you were in Vietnam, I wasn't sure if you were aware of that there is something for you in town here for being in the Vietnam era. I wasn't sure if you knew that. If you didn't, I would encourage you to talk to the town manager or assistant town manager to make sure you're aware of those helps there to decrease your taxes there, to make sure you're getting all the benefits you deserve for your service to our country. And on our website, we have a list of different dates that folks can be exempted from, and it goes all the way up to the Persian Gulf War. And so I want to make sure you're aware of that, so we can help you out to make sure you're being treated fairly with your taxes, and we can assist you as best we can, okay? So if you have questions, you can, town manager, you can contact him this week, and just make sure you know what we have in town here to assist you as one of our veterans during that time, okay? All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Cindy?
Thank you. Thank you, Greg, for addressing that. I was going to mention that as well. But to our town manager, perhaps when he does speak with Marcus, I didn't write down his last name, but Marcus did make reference to the automobile tax as well, and I'm not sure. He also spoke about the fire tax. There might be something there that can be looked at as well, in addition to the property tax. So maybe at that point that can be, addressed. Also, Wreaths Across America, I was very pleased to see that we put a jar out for donations at Mount Carmel, and we collected over $80. So I wanted to say thank you to those individuals who put in $1 or $2. Every little bit helps, and we are going to be having our ceremony again in December. So we're looking to outdo what we did last year. I think we did over 300 wreaths, and we're looking to outdo that this year. So again, thank you everyone for their contributions. We will be setting up camp at Stop and Shop, ShopRite, and other areas in the fall to try and collect some donations as well. Also, with respect to Mount Carmel, I think everyone had a great time that did come. It was a beautiful, weekend. We had some rough weather on Friday night, but all in all, it worked out real well. And I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who did come and participate in our feast. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Councilman Arnone?
First, Mr. Martin, thank you for your service. And rolling into that, Greg and I both are on the Prison Liaison Committee, and the Connecticut Corrections Department is teamed up with America Vet Dogs, and they run a program up at the Summers Enfield Prison now, raising dogs for disabled servicemen. They right now are in need of weekend puppy raisers. So what the commitment is, if they take an 8-month-old dog for the weekend and socialize it, bring it to the park, run around the backyard, get it used to people, and then they bring it back for training during the week, and then they do this every weekend. So they need right now, they need people to apply online, and online is www.vetdogs.org. Fill out an application. Somebody locally will contact you, and you can help out disabled veterans and give them a guide dog or a dog for combat stress or physical disabilities. It's a great cause, and we really should support it. And our prison system is doing just a fantastic turnaround rate with dogs. And also, I'd like to invite you all to the second annual Pirate Fair in town. It'll be on August 30 and 31st. We're going to have music. There'll be magic, 16th century style, historical demonstrations and an encampment, interactive shows. We can actually join in with Captain Hook's crew, costume contest, and pirate storytellers. Great time for the whole family. It's for a good cause. It's for Kids First of Enfield. And if you want more information, get on the website www.kidsfirstofenfield.org, and you can get all the information. It'll be right here on the town green. And it's from 11 in the morning till 7 both days. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Councilman Denny?
Yeah, I have a few things. Thank everybody for coming out to Mount Carmel for the weekend. It was great. And then now back to business. I have a question from Councilman Edgar. Called me today. He wanted to know if we had anything in our hands as far as the internal investigation on CREC. The next thing I had was on blight money. I think I asked you a question, Matt, about if the money goes into blight or is it going into the general fund. And I know we're going to be out of money before, as soon as Abbey Road is done this week.
There's a lot of work there.
Almost out. We talked about a home buyers program and a home investment program that you're starting to institute here in T-ville and so forth and so on. I just want to stress the fact that I'm in favor of all these programs, but I'm getting a little impatient when we only have one police officer from 2 o'clock till 6, and somehow we need more police in Thompsonville. The last thing is, I think we have the town has a program. If you're under a certain income, you can get a tax break and frozen your taxes, correct? And I think, Mr. Martin, you need to be, get in touch with the town manager or social services to figure that out, and thank you for your service.
Thanks, Ed. Councilman Sakala?
Thank you. Matt, to you through the mayor, I know I had sent you an email maybe about a week ago about Oak Street. I didn't know if there was an update from either you or Jonathan regarding the repavement on Oak Street that was done. And I know we did talk about this via email, and I appreciate the back and forth about Old King and the Route 5 repaving from the water company work, we'll call it. And I'd like to stay on the water company and see if there is something else that they can do. I don't want them just to be able to come in and repatch what they've done and call it a day, because they've really made a mess. Even though Enfield Street is a state road, I'd like to keep on that as well. But they've made Old King Street a mess, and I'm getting a lot of emails and calls on that. Thank you.
Thanks, Gina. Councilman Bosco?
Yeah, through the mayor to the town manager. I just want to make sure that we have Public Works double checking that area down Grant Street and actually anywhere that the water company's been putting the water mains in, and make sure that they go after it and recut it out and put new blacktop in for the second time, so we make sure the settling is done. And we need to get at them on the sidewalks before too much time goes by and they forget. And we really need, and I know we discussed it in DPW, that this should be a priority, that there needs to be some listing every time they cut a street, that it's checked per regulation down the road, that it's fixed and redone a second time. And the next thing is, I know I talked to you about the that new paving with the oil and the old tires, and I'd like to see if we can get someone here on either first or second meeting to come and explain this to the council about that procedure. And I guess that's it.
Thanks, Joey. Councilman Hall?
Through the mayor to the town manager, I know Councilman Denny mentioned Abbey Road. Can you give the rest of us an update on, that was supposed to be cut last week or the week before, I believe, is what they told us. I know I was there when Courtney had a discussion with, I think it was Timmerman, one of our zoning folks. So if you could just give us all an update on Abbey, because we're getting a lot of calls on that, and it's lighting up Facebook quite a bit. And then the other question I have for you, Matt, is there was some sort of function at Enfield High, I guess, over the weekend, and there were quite a bit of complaints that came in that the fields were in really bad condition. They were left a mess. I guess my question is, who was down there? And when these events are held, if they're not town events, I don't know what was going on down there. I honestly don't. But if it's not a town event, who's responsible for looking from the town that the fields are left in the conditions that they were given to these folks in? So, couple of questions there, and if we can have somebody go down and make sure everything's in good order right now. The playscape, I'm sure you'll address Jack's question on that. And, State Road on Elm Street, right in front of McDonald's and right before the light, there's like a crater that your whole front end of your car can go into, because I hit that. I don't know how I missed the darn thing. It's like 2 feet deep. It's huge. It's really, really deep. Going west down Elm, and it's in that far right lane. The state's got to come out and fix that. I'm sure there's a few people that lost their front ends in that one. And everybody else talked to Mr. Martin's issue. We do have that veteran rebate through the town assessment, which he can check in. My question is, Cindy touched on it, do the fire districts do anything for veteran rebates? Do we know if they do? And if they don't, is it something, we could maybe bring up to them and give them our model for what we do? They might want to consider helping the good folks that served this country for so long out. So I'm just asking for my own curiosity. I think it would be a really great, good neighbor thing for them to do. So, and that's all I have, except for a motion to suspend the rules and move items B1, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, and L to miscellaneous and proceed to vote.
Motion by Councilman Hall, seconded by Councilman Stokes to move the items to miscellaneous. Any discussion? Sensing none, by show of hands, all those in favor, those opposed, any abstentions? Unanimous. Items have been moved. Thank you, Carol. Greg?
I wanted to mention, and I know that we all were aware, but I want to give our condolences to Chuck Johnson's family. Chuck Johnson was vice chairman of the Board of Education and also served on the Board of Education for a number of years, involved in the ERTC. And he's a homegrown man, went to Info High School, and Chuck Johnson passed away this past week. Very young, at 56 years old. Him and I used to joke on Board of Ed that he always said he was older than me by a month. So just want to send along our condolences and prayers for his family, and thank them on his behalf for his service to our town over those years. So,
Thank you, Greg. Anyone else? I have just a couple items. First, a press release was issued today by the town manager's office that We are initiating the first Citizens Academy based on the very successful Citizens Police Academy that the police department has been running for years. And maybe Derek wants to go more in depth during the manager's report. But it's something that the public has been calling for to learn about the different departments in town. So it's kind of like a deep dive into the various departments, limited to the first 40 residents that sign up. And you can contact the manager's office or enroll online at enfield-ct.gov. And I know years ago I did the Citizens Police Academy, learned a lot, and hopefully this will prove to be as successful as the police department version. Through Councilman Lee, who's on, I think he's out in the woods with a troop of scouts as a vacation. So I don't know if he really considers it a vacation, but that's where he is. And he would like to know, is the town applying through CONDOT or for CONDOT support for any of the work needed on the Crescent Lake Culvert Causeway at Oak Road? So Matt, if you could address that, and maybe we're looking into it, but that was a question that he raised. I also received an email today, Matt, from a resident of Salerno Drive. They received their August 2014 domestic well sampling email. And I'll forward the email to you this evening, but really was writing to complain that the town is failing to keep the residents of Salerno Drive informed as to where we are in the process. And I thought we were notifying them periodically of what we were doing or not doing out there. And maybe Deputy Mayor Lee forwarded you the email. I don't think you were copied on it. No. So if you could, I'll forward it to you if we could get something out to the residents of Salerno to let them know exactly what we're doing there. To the folks, I know Cindy and Ed, you mentioned it, but had the opportunity to get to Mount Carmel and the Italian Festival Saturday evening and saw the part of the performance of Dina Martin and Joe Piscopo. Great concert, nice crowd. And seems like everyone was having a good time. So hopefully it was a very successful weekend for Mount Carmel. Another great community event. Our summers are full of them, from 4th of July to Mount Carmel, and Tom had mentioned the Pirate Fair at Labor Day weekend. And so congratulations to Mount Carmel, and good luck to Kids First and the Pirate Fair. And then from the public communication, we've addressed Mr. Martin's questions. Jack, on charter status, tonight the council will be moving forward because our deadline is this evening. So council has to consider the final recommendations from charter revision. And our decision points are either, and they can be individual, to accept them all and move them forward, or strategically pull out one or two that we don't agree with and move the rest forward. But that decision is this evening for us to keep to our timeline. And we'll have Matt address Siemens, and Mr. Audette left, but if you could address the sidewalk on Grant. Hopefully they didn't remove concrete sidewalks and replace them with bituminous. As the water company can do that? So, okay. Anyone else? Okay. Go ahead, Matt.
Well, thank you. Good evening. So to that point, it could be, and I'm just not up to speed on exactly what they had done over there, but there has been cases in the past where they would remove it and temporarily put in the asphalt. So that doesn't sound extraordinary to me. It's something like they would do, but I don't know if John has any information on that, or we need to look at that, or? Okay. We can get back to you tomorrow on that. So, trying to pull up here. Okay. In the packet, I had three prepared issues to talk to you about. The first one revolves around Orlando Drive and a grant that we've applied for the bridge there. And as we've done in the past with these, at this point, we just have to tell DOT that we intend to move forward, which will then allow me to sign a letter saying that we're going to move forward with this project. But before I engage the town on that, I've come back, usually come back to council and say, do you still want to proceed with this? I think we have a lot of concerns about the culvert bridge, whatever you want to call it, that Orlando, and to be able to get state funding to help replace this is a very important project for the town of Enfield. So again, there's going to be another actual formal action council will have to take, and that's when they actually send us all the grant application, or excuse me, the grant engagement stuff. You'll have to adopt that, but at this point, I'm assuming that you don't have any problem with us saying that we intend to move forward with that project.
Everyone good? Yep. Consensus?
Very good. The second one was a topic that was discussed at the last DPW subcommittee meeting, and maybe even going back before that. Council made a decision to have us, for a short amount of time, lower the cost of the tipper barrels for yard waste, the brown tipper barrels. We lowered that from what we were asking $50 down to $25. At that point in time, council said once we reach a certain time, which was this early summer, that we would come back and reevaluate whether we should increase that back up to the normal rate or leave it there. Based upon the discussions at the subcommittee, what they had asked was to bring forward to council the thought that we raise it back actually to cover what our costs are, which are $60 for those brown, as well as for the gray tipper barrels too. So if there's no problems with that, if I get the thumbs up from everyone,
good.
We'll do that, because that's within the authority of the.
Let it be noted that Councilman Mangini is in favor.
Oh.
I saw it too.
The third issue revolves around a kind of an ongoing conversation that council's had. We've had different residents come and speak about the intersection of Old King, Oliver Road, Route 5 there. We set up a meeting with DOT, brought them in, explained the concerns the town has related to that intersection, passed on, again, the concerns and possible solutions that have been talked about here, again, with the public and with council. What I put in the packet for you to review is the letter that we received back from DOT, and as predicted, that intersection does not warrant a traffic light. We actually laid out a few different options that we can take right now. DOT is looking at the signage to try to provide a little bit more signage that they feel will help at least give better notification of the intersection and warning signs for that intersection. We are looking at, and we'll be getting a permit from DOT to go out and do some sightline improvements related to the growth. I think it's all the way about 600 feet actually from that intersection heading to the south to try to give better sightline distance to that. And we're also have reached out to CROG to look at potential funding for a study to address long-term. I think everybody in that meeting felt that the way that the intersection is configured right now is not the best way for an intersection to be configured. But then it becomes, well, what's the best way? That requires a study. They recommend that that we take the lead on it, and that's when we came up with the thought of talking with CROG to see what type of planning money they have that can help fund that. Short of that, we'll be coming back to you and probably look to get some money appropriated for some preliminary studies that would give options that we could then start talking to DOT with. But it was very clear that, again, if we wanted to see changes there, we would have to take the lead on that project and try to work with them after we had different options.
Tom?
Yeah, the alignment issue is probably one of the biggest problems, especially on Oliver, where it's a Y. Again, those Ys, everywhere we see those Ys in town, we have a high accident rate because everybody's trying to slide off to the right, and then people are pulling up trying to go off to the left, so the right side doesn't get to see anything. So yeah, getting that one straight intersection, I think, is eliminating these Ys as much as we possibly can is going to probably save lives in the long run.
And there's a lot of pavement out there as well. A car that would want to cross all the way from Old King to Oliver Road, it's a lot of pavement that they would have to cover. And unfortunately, it's the end piece, of that crossing where the northbound traffic is jockeying for position to get to the one lane where it merges together. And so you have a lot of issues there.
Yeah, and the Old King Hill, that's got to come down. I think with the hill and one, just a four-way, if we can align them straighter, a lot people are going to find fault with that too. But it is what it is. It's a heck of a lot safer, I think.
But I think this we've started a different conversation than what we've had in the past with them. Going away, or at least walking away from the concept of a traffic signal there, and looking at other potential solutions that hopefully will yield positive results to try to improve the safety there.
Great. We should take the lead because they're not going to do it. We have to at least cover our end of the deal, and that's the same with Broadbrook Road too. I think if we ever have to revisit that again, that's the same issue.
Yep.
Thanks.
Anyone else on this? Carol's frowning, but. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so let's go down the list here. Some of the easier things related to HB and the Siemens work. Actually, what I'd recommend, and we'll get something out to council as well, but if Mr. Sheridan would like to contact my office, Derek has quite a bit of the information and would be more than happy to sit down and discuss that. And we'll prepare something a little bit more formal for council so you can see, what our experience has been up to this date. 202 Abbey, the thing that's killing me is that I did get an update on where we stood, exactly when it was going to be mowed and taken care of. I know that we have the contractor and I know what the estimated cost is, but I couldn't remember if it's at the end of this week or the beginning of next week. So I will send something out to you. And I was told this morning or this afternoon, I was told exactly when it was going to be. I just cannot for the life of me remember that right now. So.
Can you see if he can get to it this week?
Yeah.
If they can.
It very well may be this week.
Yeah.
I know there was a couple things that I was listening to at that point, and one was at the end of this week and one was beginning of next week. So.
Yeah, because I know 2 weeks ago it was supposed to be done too.
Yep.
So that would be great.
Seen weeds that high.
I know.
No, I didn't know they grew that tall.
I'm not aware of what function happened at Enfield High this weekend, so I will talk to Buildings and Grounds to find more out about that.
Matt, who's responsible after these events to check out our property to make sure it's returned to this?
If it were something, and again, most of our properties do require some type of facility plan, or they have to go through our facility permit. So if it went through that, then ultimately whoever signed up to have an event there would have to be responsible for that. But again, that's assuming that they went through and this wasn't something that wasn't planned. So, But I will find out,
Yeah.
and I'm surprised I don't have an email already on that, because the person in charge usually emails me because he watches this, so.
Okay, all right.
Maybe by the end of this meeting, I might have an answer.
Great, thank you.
So we'll contact DOT on the Elm Street. Not sure about fire departments, fire districts, and what type of veterans programs they have. If it's an exemption program, though, through the town, it would automatically, because we'd be exempting a certain amount of what their property is, so it would actually carry over into the fire districts. But again, there's, other programs where it actually on the tax side, not the exemption of the property tax side. So I have to look at that and get a better understanding of what's out there.
Yeah, thank you. Playscape.
Playscape, I want to say that it was disposed of. Yes. It was put in prior to 2005, I think, is when we moved in there around 2002, 2003, I think. And so it was, at that point, actually relocated, I believe, from where it was at before to there. It was older. It really wasn't worth saving. Yes, Playscape. Let's see, so we'll send somebody out to take a look at Grant Street, and we'll see if we can get somebody in contact to look at that modified chip and stone or chip and tar that you're talking about that happened, I think, in Summers, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. Blight money, as we've spoken about, I have a sneaking suspicion that not all the money that should have went into the account for the blight program, as you might recall, council set up actually a revolving program where the money from blight fines as well as the sidewalk clearing fines and costs go back into that fund. I've begun that work to look at it. A lot of it's on my desk and just has to be finalized in terms of counting. So we are working on that. And I did meet today with the chief of police and the director of public safety to get the plan on how they intend to spend the $50,000 that was earmarked as part of this. So I should have that very shortly. As soon as I have it, I'm going to send it out to all of council so you can see how they intend to utilize the $50,000 in terms of increased staffing and some other programs that they're looking at. And Salerno Drive, really the next step was Salerno. Can't say that word, name. Yes, that one. Salerno Drive. The next step with that really is to have a meeting with the residents and council. We have the final report ready to go, and it's just a matter of getting that meeting set up and presenting ultimately what our analysis and what the state's willing to do. And unfortunately, the state is not prepared to spend a couple $1 million to install a water line, and instead we'll be looking at just continuing the filtration system we have in some of the houses that are there. But it's a lot more in-depth, and we'll need to do that meeting. So I will talk with everybody and get that meeting set up. Time capsule, real quick.
Time capsule.
Yes, I think we can address that briefly. Briefly address that. Go ahead.
It was found.
End of story.
All right. So you guys had asked for you guys had asked for a recommendation. Found some more information out. Enfield Press did a good job finding a lot of information out. Give credit to them where it's due. Basically, through some research, it was somewhat proven, through as good a research as you could do, that they are nines, or they are nines instead of fours, right? Trying to get it straight myself. So in all actuality, it's 20 years old. It's not, 50 years old or 70 years old. So that being the case, it was used to commemorate the Enfield High 100th anniversary in 1993, and so with some of the information that we got, we recommend the following: to not open it, to not have the state medical examiner x-ray it, to find some class officers or students or administration from that class year, see if they want to come forward and discuss it, have a open public forum about it, talk about it, selection of the contents, what was the process of it, and then work with the press to get the story out some more about what was in it, and then either display it in the new high school with a countdown, which I think was a good idea, or rebury it either at Higgins Green with a plaque so we know it's actually there, or at the site of the Enfield High construction site with a plaque so you know where it is and where it is. So that's our recommendation.
Sound good? Okay. Anything else?
Lastly, Councilman Lee, Deputy Mayor Lee's question about the causeway and Crescent. We are looking into that.
Okay.
And that's all I have.
All right. Questions?
Do you have an update on Oak?
Oak, I do not. I will
Can you
get
get me
that
one?
to you tomorrow.
Thanks.
Yep.
Is that Oak Road or Oak Street
Oak Street.
in Hazardville? Ed?
I've been getting calls about, I think somebody mentioned about the well bit situation, and this is the second billing period now, and I'm under the understanding that we lowered the rate for well people, correct? From the 17,000 gallons down to 12.5.
16 down to 12.7.
Correct, or 12.7, and it's going to take effect in the next billing period, correct? Because they've been billed twice now.
Correct. Yeah, the first two bills and the one that most recent are all fiscal year 2014. Trying to keep that straight. And so that lowering starts with the first bill for 2015. So the next bill will reflect
the other rate.
Yeah,
I just wanted to mention that so everyone that's listening will know also.
Yep.
Thank you.
Cindy?
Thank you, Ed, for bringing that up. We are having a water pollution control meeting tonight, and I do want to bring that up under miscellaneous, if I may, because there's definitely a lot of concern on that issue. I have one bill in my possession and a couple of residents. Whether the bill goes forward or does not address back, the fact is many of these residents are under the impression from our last water pollution control meeting and discussion that they were going to have a reduced bill this cycle. So I am going to be bringing that issue up under water pollution control. Thank you.
Any other questions for Matt? All right. Thank you very much. Town Attorney's report and communication.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Given the hour, I'll defer till September unless there's, I'll be happy to answer any questions that.
Any questions for the Town Attorney?
But just
Go ahead, Carol.
One quick item. CREC updates. Any CREC updates? Have we had anything new since the last meeting?
The certified list has been filed. We're, in terms of the appeal process, is proceeding through. We've got scheduled dates for briefs going in September on that. Continuing to meet every Wednesday morning with our staff, going over both the CO construction and the site plan issues that have come up on that. No CO has been issued yet. They're still working through the issues that they've got over there.
Okay. And did you watch the last zoning appeals meeting? You're all up on
On
what
the
took place?
denial of the 10-foot variance
yeah,
application that went
yeah.
through, yes. Yep.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any questions for the Town Attorney? All right, thank you, Kevin. Reports of special committees of the council, anything from the Enfield High School Renovation Building Committee? Donna, Gina. Donna?
Actually, I attended the last meeting. I think they have their building permit all set. The footings are in for the back on the west side where the machine shops will be and automotives. And also, I think in about a week and a half, the Gilbane is going to go over to Head Start. They've been working with the Head Start people, and they're going to bring a clean dump truck and hard hats and snacks for the Head Start. And it's sort of our little work-study program. The Head Start children have been absolutely fascinated by all the work, and I think that's how you get kids interested in what they could be for the future. And I think things seem to be going okay. We didn't have a meeting last week, but we will have one this Thursday.
Okay. Any other reports of special committees of the council? Councilman Mangini.
Thank you. Yes, I have a couple. Enfield Adult Day Center, we had an advisory board meeting on July 16th. Much activity is going on. We had a recreation report. July 25th, Stratton Brook visit. August 22nd, they're having a pet show with the 4-H. September 14th through 20th is Adult Day Week. Lots of activity. The group is working on putting ads on the bus, possibly the Magic Bus, street signs, trying to get some more enrollment. Their goal is 25 customers per day, and I think they're around averaging 21 a day, so they're making some real good progress, and it's definitely a program that we need to continue to support. On another note, we had a CCM board meeting recently, and a couple of the issues that we addressed, establishing an executive search committee to look for a new executive director, to create a governance committee reviewing the bylaws of the organization, and incorporating a municipal labor relations program into the core services. More detail will be coming forward on that. All in all, they're exciting initiatives that will serve as bigger steps moving forward with the new vision of CCM. The goal pretty much is to try and bring the members more into the fold, to try and get more participation in different groups, more lobbying at the Capitol to make our voice a little bit stronger. NLC, we had a very busy 3-day session. I sent everyone a report. I know maybe you haven't had a chance to look at it. I bullet pointed it the best I could. The purpose, obviously, of the meeting was to help formulate the NLC's advocacy priorities, specifically youth education and families, energy and environment, public safety, economic development, finance. I did bring back much information. I'll pass along to town manager to provide to appropriate staff. The youth education and families work folder. Primarily what they're looking to do, the discussion centered around school readiness, reading proficiency by grade 3. And I'm proud to say that here in Enfield, through First Readers, we're making much great strides in that area. NLC municipal leaders are bringing key stakeholders together to improve early education and strengthen local schools to form better alignment between the preschool and school-based learning to help children transition. We had a special strategy session looking at different types of committees going forward. How can we design a sustainable approach to identifying and engaging members in policies and advocacy activities? Our Fair Committee, we actually had a briefing on GASB, which, again, I got information for Lynn, which I'll pass along to town manager, and he can deliver to appropriate staff. And again, I bulleted what pretty much the discussion was. We had a joint session, IT and Fair. We listened to AT&T, Comcast, Google, Verizon, talking about innovative ways to bring our communities closer and have our residents a little more involved with our programs, our local programs. We had a tour of Union Depot, which I found to be very exciting. We participated in that tour with the Energy, the Community Development, and the TIS Committee. We had a tour. They showcased the multimodal transportation and the mixed use for planning and development. We actually got to see how they have condominium structures right in their train station on the second level where people are actually living in residential facilities, which I thought was very unique. They have a blue line and a green line. They're trying to connect the two. They're going from St. Paul into different parts of Wisconsin. It was really very interesting. And again, I have a folder for town manager. And we, Fair Committee identified several topics for discussion that we'll take up at a later time. Legalization of marijuana, Marketplace Fairness Act. We also looked at a couple of Supreme Court cases, the Hobby Lobby, prayer council meetings, and the free speech buffer zone case. And I referenced where you can research these Supreme Court rulings on the web. A lot of detailed reading, but it was very interesting. So if anyone has any questions, I do have documents of information, happy to share. I know right now is probably going to take forever to do that, but if anyone would like more, I have it. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Any other reports of special committees of the council? Councilman Suzak.
We had a meeting of the Leisure Committee a week ago, actually a week ago today. And I'm happy to report that we moved forward and they went to planning and zoning with the changes to the Brainerd Park. And all the site changes were approved for all three phases. And I was wondering, Matt, how much money do we have available for the Brainerd Park? Is it through phase one and then phase two, or just phase one? I went through my notes all day today, and I was like,
I believe it's not all the phase one, because I think phase one includes lights being installed, and I think
I thought that was phase two.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm getting head wagging in the back, and that's phase two is the lights. But do we have the fencing?
Okay, so we're having a game show here, and they're saying you're right. So we have funding up through phase one, then, correct? It's about $50,000, if I'm not mistaken. Correct.
Okay, and they've been approved for all of the three phases, so when we do get funds, we would love to move forward and get that project finished. I guess the other thing we did is we met with Mary Keller, and she brought, we talked about the skateboard park that's out in Green Manor and what her vision is for a new park out there. And I think she's going to start to do some user input and try to come in with a more all-inclusive park design out there. And Matt brought forward some plans for what do we do now that Higgins is down. And the Leisure Committee reviewed 3 options, and they've asked him to do a little bit more research, which we'll be bringing that back to council. Thanks.
Thanks, Donna. Any further reports of special committees of the council? I have just one, and it's not necessarily a committee, but I was contacted by the Four-Town Fair Parade. Enfield is the host community this year. And the parade is on Saturday, September 13th. And I've always been an advocate of trying to get Enfield to be a greater participant in the parade. So to Matt and Derek, if I give you this letter, could we do something from the manager's office out to different departments, different agencies to try to build some support for an Enfield contingent? We're looking for the parade, and whether it's the fire departments participate, the police department, explorers, but maybe Dial-A-Ride wants to have a bus in it, maybe Buildings and Grounds wants to build a float, like they like to build floats for the parades here in Enfield, or they have one, but something that we can showcase Enfield. And Joey's our go-to person on the Four-Town Fair Parade. But Matt, I'll hand this over to you, and if we can do something, and even contact the schools to see if one of the bands, and I know it's Big E time, right, so if we could get one of the high school, Saturday, yes. No, Enfield High School. What's that? But they marched in the Memorial Day parade, so it'd be nice to have a band. I judge it every year, and when you see the contingents come down and a band leads off each contingent and Enfield doesn't have one, it's kind of sad. So it is our organization, our parade, our effort. So we're one of the 4 towns. All right, old business, appointments, town council appointed. Items 1 through 13, is there a motion to remove item 10 from the table?
So moved.
By Councilman Arnone, seconded by Councilman Mangini. By a show of hands, all those in favor? Those opposed? Item's been removed from the table. It wasn't linked, but it was in my write-up, and it was mentioned at leadership. So, is there a motion for, anyone want to make a motion?
Michelle Lewandowski
Yep,
for
so,
revitalization.
so a motion by Councilman Mangini for Michelle Lewandowski. Seconded by Councilman Hall. Is there a motion to close nominations by Councilman Hall, seconded by Councilman Denny? All those in favor? I know, you were too late. All those in favor of closing nominations? Those opposed? Nominations are closed. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman Sakala.
4.
Councilman Denny.
4.
Councilman Hall.
4.
Mayor Copen.
Michelle Lewandowski.
Councilman Mangini.
Michelle Lewandowski.
Councilman Stokes.
4.
Councilman Suzak.
4.
Councilman Arnone.
Michelle Lewandowski.
Councilman Bosco. 4. There's 9 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Any other appointments by the council? Appointments by the town manager. Items 1 through 12. Matt, all remain on the table? Looks like our lists are now equal. And items C, D, and E remain on the table. And we will be meeting with the Conservation Commission in our first meeting in September.
That's good.
And then part of it can be that discussion on 350 Enfield Street. New business, consent agenda, appointments, town council, manager, there are none. So we move to items for discussion. All items have been moved to miscellaneous, so we move to miscellaneous. So the first item under miscellaneous would be the Historic District Commission appointment. Is there a nomination?
To make a nomination of Sonia Dean.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Arnone, seconded by Councilman Sakala. Is there a motion to close nominations? Motion by Councilman Hall, seconded by Councilman Bosco.
Wow. I think that's like the 3rd time I sent something on.
All those in favor of closing nominations? Those opposed? Nominations are closed. Any discussion? Sensing none, roll call, please.
Councilman Sakala.
Sonia Dean.
Councilman Denny.
Sonia Dean.
Councilman Hall.
Sonia Dean.
Mayor Copen.
Sonia Dean.
Councilman Mangini.
Oh, Sonia Dean.
Councilman Stokes.
Sonia Dean.
Councilman Suzak.
4.
Councilman Arnone.
Sonia Dean.
Councilman Bosco.
4.
There's 9 in favor, none against, no abstentions.
Okay, next item, discussion resolution, request for transfer of funds for last fiscal year legal fees, $2,803. Resolved that in accordance with Chapter 6, Section 8F of the Town Charter, the following transfers hereby made to Town Attorney, legal fees, $2,803, from contingency, $2,803. Certified the funds are available, Lynn Nenny, Director of Finance.
So moved.
By Councilman Mangini, seconded by Councilman Hall. Discussion. Councilman Sakala.
Thank you. So I understand this is only $2,800, but I guess where my real question and issue comes is we have a town attorney. we have town attorney's office. So we have 2 people here. Why are we using Shipman and Goodman?
So the one aspect is for bond counsel. The other is for environmental. And
Is it because the people we have are not capable of doing that, or is that something that's required to be outside counsel?
I don't think it's required to be outside counsel, but historically we've used Shipman and Goodman for all of our bond. I don't think it's something that.
No, bond counsel is specialized counsel that you have to be qualified for in order to get the underwriting, and every town has a separate bond counsel.
Okay.
It just, that's the nature of that niche business that we've got here. They have to opine on everything from the offering statement to the prospectus to all the other pieces, and you have to be part of an approved list in order to get the insured portion of that.
Okay.
Bond things. On the environmental, we generally do a lot of the, I would say, sort of first and second cut level, the phase 1, phase 2, things like that. When we have a particular issue that goes beyond the expertise that we have in our office, we go outside counsel for that. So it's a very sporadic, on a case-by-case basis, but that's basically where that comes from.
Okay,
All set?
thanks.
Further questions, comments? Sensing none, roll call, please.
Councilman Sakala?
4.
Councilman Denny?
4.
Councilman Hall?
4.
Mayor Copeland?
4.
Councilman Mangini?
4.
Councilman Stokes? 4. Councilman Suzak?
4.
Councilman Arnone?
4.
Councilman Bosco?
4.
There's 9 in favor, none against, no abstentions.
Next item, discussion resolution authorizing development services to establish a revenue account and utilize funds for the community and farmers market. Whereas the Enfield Town Council has authorized development services to establish revenue account 234061117 for the community and farmers market in order to allow citizens and businesses to make donations to the market. Now therefore be it resolved, the Enfield Town Council specifies that any donations received by Enfield Development Services through the community and farmers market will be committed to the purchase of supplies for the market and may be paid from account 234061117.
So moved.
By Councilman Mangini, seconded by Councilman Hall. Discussion? I just want to make a comment on it. There was some chatter back and forth today about the farmers market, and hats off to the folks that have been putting it on, coordinating, organizing, trying to build it this year. In a conversation with Councilman Lee, I fully support development services creating and trying to spur the establishment of a farmer's market, but I'm also one that doesn't necessarily believe that when it is up and running that it is a function of government to be running a farmer's market all the time. We want to revitalize Thompsonville. We want these new initiatives, and a lot of times it takes us to spur, but we should also hand off. And similar to like the 4th of July celebration, it transitioned itself, and there's a private nonprofit that runs the event and managed by the town. And this should be something in the future that we aspire to. Let it be a fundraiser for an organization that's working to improve Thompsonville, because a farmer's market can be a successful money-making venture. So you're attracting people in, you're selling tent space, things such as that. So I don't mind us establishing an account, but I'm hoping that this is more of a short term, and that once it's proved successful this year and we have that discussion, possibly part of discussion is who does this then transition to? So wanted to put that out on the record. Tom?
As we're bouncing this back and forth today, too, it occurred to me kind of the same lines, of even how we run the Hall of Fame right now. We're actually a part of that committee, but they're their own 501c.
Yep.
So we have a liaison that's assigned to them. They run their own pretty much business through themselves with their own checking account, their own, and we still have say in it because we do give them some funds, so it keeps some control on the, but gives them the autonomy they need to do their stuff. So I was thinking today heavily that would be a really good route for this in the long run, to get those concerned citizens, so that way we can bring staff back out of it and get more volunteers down there, but, you know, keep our police patrols in and stuff like that. So that was just occurred to me after that brainstorming we had.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Cindy?
The only other comment that I wanted to make, I know, we're doing Wednesday 4 to 8, and I realize that it's difficult for many people because they work, weeknights. At some point, maybe, and I know in the emails going back and forth, we did touch on the possibility of a Saturday / or Sunday, which probably would attract more people, to town, maybe even a Sunday afternoon after church is over, or a Saturday afternoon for that matter. We might think about that in the fall, if that's a possibility, if we want to market this and try and get some real activity going, because I think during the weeknight, whether it's Wednesday or Tuesday or Thursday, many people would have difficulties getting there, at that time. I think it's better than it was at noontime. I remember it was noontime a few years back, and that was really, really difficult. I was like 11 to 3 or something. But, all in all, I think maybe a weekend might benefit us to some degree. Thank you.
Thanks, Cindy. Anyone else? Roll call, please.
Councilman Sakala?
4.
Councilman Denny?
4.
Councilman Hall?
4.
Mayor Copeland?
4.
Councilman Mangini?
4.
Councilman Stokes?
4.
Councilman Suzak? 4. Councilman Arnone?
4.
Councilman Bosco?
4.
There's 9 in favor, none against, no abstentions.
Next item, discussion resolution authorizing the town manager to enter into a contract with the State Department of Education for Early Childhood Bond Fund Grant Program. Resolved that the town manager, Matthew W. Koppler, is empowered to enter into and amend contractual instruments in the name and on behalf of the town of Enfield with the State Department of Education for the Early Childhood Bond Funds Grant Program for minor capital improvements and to affix the corporate seal.
So moved.
By Councilman Mangini, seconded by Councilman Hall. Discussion? Anyone have any questions on this? Councilman Sakala?
Again, this is something I believe that we brought up via email. I just want to make sure that whatever we want to do here plays nice with what the Board of Ed just discussed in a special meeting, I believe a week and a half or 2 weeks ago, regarding what is going to go into Stowe and not. I don't want to do, $95,000 worth of renovations or improvement and not play nice with what they want to do.
Yeah, and so we've been meeting, I know Pam's here, if she wants to add anything to this, she's more than welcome to come up, but we've been meeting with, and she's been meeting with representatives from the Board of Education, Dr. Schumann, to talk about what's going to go into that program. I think most recently we had a meeting, the mayor, myself, Dr. Schumann, and the board chair, Tom Serrard, talking about this as well. And, the plan is that what they're looking to add to Stowe fits with what we would like to put into Stowe. And so there's been a lot of coordination related to that. Right now, as I had sent out earlier, they are waiting to get a waiver from the state because we owe about $811,000 still on the construction that was done earlier, long time ago, I guess. And they cannot have their operations in Stowe at best until school year of 15-16. And reason is they have to go through and do evaluations of all the students that are going to be going in there to change, and I can't remember the exact term of what it is it's called, but and so they have to go through all those children before they could actually move the program. And so they won't have their operations in there until the next school year. So we have a year's time frame when our operation will go into Stowe, and we just need to make sure the state doesn't come back and say, you have to pay $800,000 back to us right now.
Right. I mean, I personally think it's a fantastic idea to get the the CDC and then, FRC, kite, all of that into one
Pre-K,
building.
yep.
I think it's fantastic. That being said, I also just want to make sure that the money that we're paying is going to the town's side of the renovations and the upgrades that we need to do.
And
Not,
what Pam would be applying for would actually benefit the whole building. So it's not just, what our program is. I believe, I don't know if you want to come forward and maybe address that real quick for us. Thank you.
You're welcome. Good evening. So the grant, we would apply for funding for modifications that would, some of them would affect the whole building, such as HVAC, possibly air conditioning, playground modifications, and then there would be changes that would be made to for storage and for playground, equipment to use in the gym, and that equipment would be shared. So some of the modifications would be for shared things that would benefit the whole building, and others, smaller items, could benefit just the classrooms that house the Child Development Center through the state grant and through the school readiness grant.
Any further questions, comments? Thank you, Pam.
You're welcome.
Roll call, please.
Councilman Sakala?
4.
Councilman Denny?
4.
Councilman Hall?
4.
Mayor Copeland?
4.
Councilman Mangini?
4.
Councilman Stokes? 4. Councilman Suzak? 4. Councilman Arnone?
4.
Councilman Bosco? 4. There's 9 in favor, none against, no abstentions.
Next item, discussion resolution, resolution authorizing the town manager to enter into an agreement with the Connecticut State Library for Historic Preservation Grant. Resolve that Matthew W. Koppler, town manager, is empowered to execute and deliver in the name and on behalf of this municipality a contract with the Connecticut State Library for an historic documents preservation grant. By Councilman Hall, seconded by Councilman Mangini. Discussion.
You go be empowered. You go.
I feel empowered now.
Roll call, please, to execute.
I don't know what I have to
too.
listen to here.
Roll call, please.
Councilman Sakala?
4.
Councilman Denny?
4.
Councilman Hall?
4.
Mayor Copeland?
4.
Councilman Mangini?
4.
Councilman Stokes?
4.
Councilman Suzak?
4.
Councilman Arnone?
4.
Councilman Bosco? 4. There's 9 in favor, none against, no abstentions.
Next item, discussion resolution for ERFC assumption of YWCA lease for before and after school program. We're getting to the resolution. Resolution accepting, no, where is it, Matt?
That's the paper?
It's not on there.
Hey, Matt, where's the resolution for ERFC?
I didn't see one either.
We the people, in order to form, well, that's not it.
Claire, you want to come on up?
No, you can just improvise.
You know what?
It's not there. I got the hard copy.
Talk amongst yourself.
So, Claire's going to come up and give us a update on what ERFC would like to do. Hello, Claire, and sorry for the late hour.
That's okay.
Hi, Rick.
Understand. The YW had decided a few weeks ago to, and working here in Enfield, and we were contacted by several Nathan Hale, especially parents, because that is the only school that does not have access to any ERFC center in town. And we met and decided that we would merge one of our centers in order to be able to help the town and open a center for Nathan Hale families. So what would happen here is the Nathan Hale is a K-2 building, so we would have a school-age center for before and after school there. The siblings, the grades 3 to 5, would be bused to Nathan Hale. That is an agreement with Dr. Schumann, with the Board of Ed, with kids that actually would belong to the Nathan Hale district from Parkman, Crandall, and Eli Whitney would be bused to that new ERFC center. The other schools that are being vacated, programs vacated by the YW, that would be Crandall and Parkman schools. We are not looking to open full centers there. It's not feasible for us at this time. We would like to do a needs assessment to find out from families what their needs are. Right now, Crandall school students are bused to our center at Barnard School, and Parkman students are bused to our center at Enfield Street School. We are looking to merge this year the Eli Whitney school-age center with the Hazardville school-age center in order for us to have the funds to open the Nathan Hale Center. And that way, all families in Enfield will have access to before and after school. Well, not all. Parkman School and Crandall School will not have before school this year until a needs assessment has been really put together for those families. Attendance was very low for before school at both those schools with the YW, and we cannot operate a before school program unless there are 10 children registered. It's not feasible to do that. So we have to put through that needs assessment in order to really look at the cost effectiveness of what we'll do in the future for them. What we're looking tonight is to be able to lease Parkman as well as Crandall and Nathan Hale. Nathan Hale would be a full school-age center. Parkman and Crandall, we'd like to propose to do some short-term programs at those two schools. Pilot some, like a science activity or a sports program there that would run 4 to 6 weeks in order for families to have something happening at their school after school without them having to register for a full year program. That is one area that parents in a survey ERFC did 2 years ago said that they would like to have more short-term after-school program or activities directly in their schools. And we are going to pilot some of those programs at the schools that will not have centers. That's our proposal.
All right. Questions? Greg?
No. Thank you for what you're doing, and you know, I know that when we were part of that, having the Y come in and the whole discussion about who would be in what school. I'm glad this has finally come to fruition. I think a few years ago I had mentioned that I wanted to see you guys in all the schools and that there, but we had our bidding process that was implemented. You do a great job. I know I have a granddaughter. It's in one of the programs, and so she's enjoying it. It's been very, very helpful to her. But I just, you guys are doing great, and I look forward to the other two schools doing those short-term things.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I think it'd be great to have them all the schools, but we understand that. So I just want to say good job. So
Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Cindy?
And Claire, we go back a long way. I remember you in the basement of St. Andrew's Church and me helping with homework, doing the summer program. It's tremendous to see how you've grown and what you've done with the children. We really would be at a loss without your programs in this town. So I just wanted to say thank you for all your hard work and all your staff. It really paid off. So we're very lucky. Thank you.
Further comments? We're waiting for Matt to come down with the resolution. So the resolution is supposed to be to allow ERFC to, assume the leases, modified as Claire had talked about from the WISE leases. Claire contacted me 2 weeks ago is when you found out about this, so it was pretty much thrown into the town in Claire's lap, very last minute. I think it's the middle of the summer, but it takes a long time. What steps do you have to go through to actually be able to open at each of those three schools?
Nathan Hale's the biggest step. That has to be licensed. The license from the Y is not just assumed, we have to apply. And we're going to be able to start, according to the state, with strictly the two rooms that they use. They use only the cafeteria and the all-purpose, the cafeteria and the gym. In order to operate our program and fully function with our program, we have an additional 4 to 8 classrooms that we also utilize in order to link our program with the school day. We are going to have to wait on that. In order to open for the first day of school on September 2nd, we are just going to take over the license for those 2 areas for Nathan Hale. As far as Parkman and Crandall School, all we need to do is enter into a lease with the town. We are going to not have to license those 2 schools at this time with short-term activities. It's very costly. They have to investigate. Nathan Hale will probably end up costing us over $2,000 just to operate for the beginning of the year. And then to expand it, then they have to go through all the water, the lead, all the painting, everything has to be checked. So the last time we did this with all the schools, we were over $21,000 just to get the buildings ready to operate for us. So we're going to take it very slowly, a step at a time, get the buildings at least leased for ERFC to operate. And we'll recognize with the Department of Public Health what needs to be done in what time frame. They cannot do anything more than those 2 rooms for us to open on the first day of school, which I think is really important for families.
Do you see it being an expansion to, say, full programming at Nathan Hale by after Christmas break?
The hope is we have everything up and going by right after Christmas.
Right.
Yeah, it's just going to take some steps to do it correctly.
And Parkman and Crandall would be?
They will remain as short-term for this year until we do that full study. And really meet with the principals. I've already am meeting with one tomorrow, and I need to find out what their school really needs. Because remember, they do have access to our school-age centers at the other schools. They are bused, so it's not like they're without at all. They are without morning programs, but again, that has not been popular in those grades, so.
Your other schools for your morning programs, you had said you needed 10.
10 minimum in order to
minimum.
operate.
What are the populations at the other schools that you've run for a couple years?
They average between 10 and 15. And it's taken a while to build it up. So we went at a loss for the first year and then realized where our costs exactly were, and it's been building since then. I anticipate Hale to be pretty full. We're starting the year with over 75 registrations, and that's the highest we've ever been to before school starts.
So 75?
75 registrations among our centers.
At Nathan Hale or?
No, I don't
across?
know. I don't know the breakdown. I didn't see it, but I know that we have the registrations. So the programs are growing. We'll serve over 400 children this year.
Good news. Anyone else? Any other? Donna?
So all your before-school programs are at the K-2 schools?
Yes, they are.
Okay, so that how you have them all sistered in, and you
Right.
still do your program out at JFK, correct?
JFK is also, yes, an
Okay,
operation.
that was a really big thing, is that you were the only one that provided for the middle school. And a little continuity. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Further questions? So we're going to be in a holding pattern until Matt gets down here.
Your summer programs, could you run through your summer programs too?
Sure.
How they were this year while we got you here and we
me
got
here,
the
right?
time? Give
Our
us it all,
summer
yeah.
escape program operates at JFK, and this is its final week. It runs for 6 weeks. We've been serving approximately 148 children per day, per week, and at that center. We also have the summer lunch bunch, and we've been serving free lunches to approximately 65 children per day, and their parents, and that's averaging about 25 to 35. So it's been popular. We'll end Summer Escape on Friday, and next week we will open Vacation Destination, which is our program that will operate for 2 weeks for working families who need to have out-of-school time activities for their children. And we'll operate that for 2 weeks.
Can you still get in on that now, if anybody
Absolutely.
listening?
Yes,
could still
vacation
apply?
destination, we still have registrations, I believe. I think we have 6 to 8 slots left. That's
60.
it.
And
Yeah.
where do they go to?
And that will be held at JFK.
Yeah, but for registration, just call
Registration, they
online?
can they can go online at www.erfc.us, or our office is located at 50 Post Office Road.
Great, thank you. I don't know how much more we can stretch,
Yeah,
folks.
how much Really?
I can tell you that my kids love the summer escape program.
Wonderful. So glad they're with
That
us.
was my plug.
Hey,
That's great. That's great.
Now for that awkward moment, we're
Yeah.
going to have to go to break. They're up there scrambling, trying to find this document right now. Is the lease up to your liking too and everything? You've got it pretty
Lease will
much like the
work
rest of your
fine.
leases?
Yeah, the lease will work fine for us. We did ask in the letter and the proposal that maybe we delay the lease payment for the new school, since we hadn't anticipated in our budget until January, if that's possible. That's something we're requesting.
So, that's on this,
It's in the
to agree
proposal.
to this too. I'd be in favor of that. There's, I
Yeah,
don't-
just so we can get our footing.
Right, because this has been kind of dropped in the lap, so to speak, also, so. Okay, hey, we're ready to go back.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Thanks.
Scott Copen.
Hot off the press.
Did you guys have to go to Kinko's?
It was a very fine production of paper.
So as it's being passed around, and it will look very familiar, resolution authorizing the town manager to enter into a lease agreement with the Educational Resources for Children, Inc. for use of various town-owned school facilities. Whereas the Educational Resources has expressed an interest in leasing space from the town to operate a before and after school program for children at the following town-owned school facilities, namely Prudence Crandall Elementary School, Nathan Hill Elementary School, Edgar H. Parkman Elementary School. And whereas the Enfield Town Council desires to lease space within these town-owned school facilities for the aforementioned purposes. And whereas on October 20th, 2011, pursuant to Connecticut General Statute, Section 8-24, the Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission made a positive referral regarding the town council's interest in leasing various town-owned school facilities for this purpose. And now therefore be it resolved that the Enfield Town Council does hereby authorize the town manager to enter into an agreement with the Educational Resources for Children, Inc., subject to the town attorney's review and approval, for space to operate a before and after school program for children in the following town-owned school facilities: Prudence Crandall Elementary School, Nathan Hill Elementary School, Edgar H. Parkman Elementary
moved.
School. By Councilman Stokes, seconded by Councilman Arnone. Discussion. Matt, Kevin, you want to just go over this? Learned a lot about ERFC.
Yes, thank you. So going back, when we first opened up the idea of leasing for after-school programs, of course, with both ERFC and the Y, we'd gone through a series of 8-24s as well as public hearings that would authorize the council to lease the facilities for those purposes. What is being presented tonight is a modification, for the most part, of what the original idea that the Y had started with those 3 schools. And so we still have to work out maybe some of the details on what the lease looks like. And again, that's why in here, as with most of ours, when we don't have the lease prepared, which we weren't going to have for tonight, it has to be approved by the town attorney before we actually sign anything with them. We'll work all those details out.
So any questions from council? Sensing none? Roll call, please.
Councilman Sakala.
4.
Councilman Denny.
4.
Councilman Hall.
4.
Mayor Copeland.
4.
Councilman Mangini.
4.
Councilman Stokes.
4.
Councilman Suzette.
4.
Councilman Arnone.
4.
Councilman Bosco.
4.
There's 9 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. Good luck.
Thank you.
Next item, discussion resolution accepting the Charter Revision Commission's final report. The Charter Revision Commission, whereas the Charter Revision Commission submitted its draft report to the Town Council on May 23, 2014. And whereas the Town Council conducted 2 public hearings on June 16, 2014 and June 23, 2014 to hear public opinion regarding the Charter Revision Commission's draft report. And whereas the Town Council on June 30, 2014 and a result of its official action on June 30, 2014, forwarded recommendations to the Charter Revision Commission. And whereas the Charter Revision Commission reviewed and responded to the Town Council's recommendation on July 21, 2014. Now therefore be it resolved that this Town Council of the Town of Enfield does hereby accept the Charter Revision Commission final report dated July 21, 2014. Moved by Councilman Mangini, seconded by Councilman Arnone. Matt and Kevin, can you go over what steps got us to this point? Not the whole from start to finish, but since the Charter Revision Commission met the last time, and what alternatives does the council have? We can accept this resolution as is, but there's also the ability to change some of the recommendations or remove some of the recommendations.
So, as you may recall, back in June, Council acted to make recommendations to the Charter Commission on some changes that you'd like to see made to their first draft that they had provided to you. Both Kevin and I met with the Charter Revision Commission and went over page by page each of the changes. And for the most part, they accepted, I want to say, practically everything that council had recommended. And there wasn't a lot of discussion on most of those, except for the 3 areas that I outlined within the memo. And again, the 3 areas that differed from council, kind of going reverse right now, is on the referendum and the bonding. They chose to keep the language as it is in the current charter. So therefore, that's not really up for discussion tonight regarding their final recommendation, because it is the language that's currently there. So as we go through what your options are, that's really off the table. There's nothing you can do there. The next 2, though, one on the appointment of the commission members for the inland wetlands. They chose, again, to keep the language the same as they had proposed it, where council had suggested that they change it to the appointing authority be council, not the town manager, as approved by the town council. So they kept their language that they originally put in there, and we can talk about that in a little bit as well. The third one is on the power of initiative. And again, they accepted 99% of what council recommended for the change to that be. The only thing that they deviated from council was the percentage of registered voters, of signatures of registered voters that would have to be on the petition. Council had suggested 10%. They came back with 7%. So with those being really the only substantive changes that are differences from what council had suggested to what they put in their final report, we move forward to tonight. And council has before it really 3 options. One, council can say, we like their final report, so we're going to send that forward. Council could say, absolutely hate the work that they've done, don't want to send it forward at all, so the process is over. Or you can go through and pick out those areas that you choose not to put forward to a referendum.
And the only thing I would add to that is tonight's role is to determine what changes, if any, you want to send to referendum. How you want to present that in multiple questions, a single question, we can do that in September. We don't need to do that part tonight. So it's just identifying which changes, as proposed by the Charter Revision Commission, you want to send forward at this point. But how it gets presented in the referendum question, we can deal with in September.
Okay. So we all agreed, because I believe it was unanimous going back to charter revision for, so really it's the 3 items that they didn't change or accept our recommendations. Is it fair to have the discussion on those 3? Which then could then get us to the point of saying, okay, we're going to go for one of 3 options, 1, 2, or 3.
If I could, Mr. The third item, in terms of keeping the referendum and bonding limits, there really isn't anything you can do about that.
Correct.
Because if you reject the Charter Commission's proposal of no change, you go back to the current language, which is no change.
Right, right.
So it's really the first.
It's the first 2.
2 that you can actually respond to.
Carol had a question.
Basically, I think you answered my question. So the last item, raising the referendum bonding limits, they chose not to raise those limits, which is disappointing to me. I think we need a little wiggle room there, but that's not here nor there. I would like to see the council, the body that moved these 2 items to them, I'd like to see those left in the changes, what
So-
the council suggested.
So your recommendation is to, so we have 2 options. It either can, the options really are to accept the charter revision's recommendation or to do nothing and it reverts to what's currently in the charter today.
Yeah, at this point, you cannot change what the Charter Commission has put forward as their final draft.
Right.
You can only say, yes, we like it in total.
Okay.
No, we don't like it in total, or you pull out those sections that you don't agree should go to referendum.
Okay,
So,
so we'd have to
for
pull those
instance-
out entirely.
Yeah, for instance, on the power of initiative, if you don't like their change to 7%, you couldn't say, well, let's make it 10. You would actually have to pull out that whole recommendation that was there that, again, primarily is council's recommendation for changes. You'd have to pull that all out, and what currently is in the charter then would remain there for
Right.
the power of initiative.
So, yeah.
So do you want, let's start off with the easy one. So the first bullet point, which is inland wetlands and watercourse. Today, the charter states,
Nothing whatsoever.
It's moved.
It's currently not in the charter.
Not in
That
the
is
charter.
just an ordinance that was adopted by council back
Okay.
whenever it was adopted.
and charter revision has recommended that it's an appointment by the manager.
Yeah, they have effectively taken what council has adopted as the appointment process for that, and basically what has been adopted for inland wetland and has put it in the charter. Now, during that conversation that we had with them, one of the comments that was made is that if you keep it, obviously if it stays in as it is, to change that, you would have to go through a referendum somewhere in the future to change that section. If council wanted to make that change related to the appointment, then my recommendation would be
To pull it out.
pull it out, and then keeping it as an ordinance.
Do it by ordinance.
You could then go through the ordinance amendment process.
Yeah.
So that, I think, is, and again, that was what we discussed within the Charter Revision Commission, that would be an option for council if it is so desired to make that change.
Okay.
But they did not want to make that change.
All right, I'd like to pull it out on the first item.
So do we do this by a motion to amend?
And, correct.
Oh, no, I'm doing under his highlights, the bullet points, except,
I got you.
okay? So Councilman Hall is making an amendment, a motion to amend, which would be to remove any reference to inland wetlands and watercourse agency appointment
Appointments.
It would be.
not push that forward to,
It would be to remove the recommendation at Chapter 5, Section 15.
Yes.
okay.
And I'd second that.
Exactly.
So motion by Councilman Hall, seconded by Councilman Arnone. Discussion on that amendment.
You didn't do it with initiative.
Everyone, no discussion? So then we do by a show of hands, all those in favor of the amendment, by a show of hands. Those opposed? Unanimous. Okay. Then if we could go to the second bullet point, which is reducing the required number of signatures for petitions from 10 to 7. We wanted 10. They wanted 7. We pushed back saying, consider 10. They said no. So the recommendation is you either go with 7 or no power of initiative.
No, or no change from the
Or
current.
no changes, right.
The current.
No changes.
What is the current percentage?
The current is 10, but it also doesn't
There's a
have all
ton
those
of
provisions that we
changes,
went
right.
through in terms of the
Right.
review.
Right.
It would be the current language in the charter without the review and all the other pieces that we put together in there.
Yeah.
Councilman Arnone.
Yeah, in that particular one, I think that it amounted to some 300, maybe 400 signatures. It really wasn't a relative amount of signatures either way. If you went to 10 or 7, it's in hundreds. And when you're talking thousands, to me, it's like we've made some changes there, I think, that are really needed, especially with language on helping the initiative of people actually writing the initiative, so there's no confusion and bad feelings, I guess, in the end of it all. So, yeah, I support, move that one forward.
Councilman Mangini.
Thank you. Just for clarity, keep it the 10 to 7% because quite honestly, I don't think the percent adversely affects the number to that much of a degree. It's the language, like Tom was just saying, I think was key as to what we need to make sure is contained in the new revision. So we would leave that alone. Is that correct? If we all agree, we don't make any amendment to that. We just leave.
Well, we can't.
No,
Correct.
we would leave it
Just
alone.
let it go the way it is.
Okay. Let's make sure I understand because
So
it's the
no
language.
action by us
Okay.
is accepting the recommendation from charter revision of all the changes to the power of initiative.
Okay.
We don't need a motion to
No,
it.
we just let it go, right?
You don't need a motion to
To go with it.
Yeah.
That is the motion.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So any
That is the
further
main motion.
discussion?
No, I just want to make sure I
I think this is one of the major reconstructs of the charter, and charter revision sometimes is a reaction to a process that just happened, and this is the perfect example of it. And we saw, whether you agreed with the item up for discussion or not, you saw the process be very difficult and difficult to understand. And being one of the liaisons to the charter revision and sitting through some of their meetings, not all of them, they worked really hard to try to make this section, with Kevin's help, with Chris's help, with Lynn Nenny's help, to try to really make it a more user-friendly section of the charter. So I think they did great work there, and we'll see how it operates over the next 10 years. Okay. So we have the resolution amended by the one item. We can't change the bonding level, so right now, that's really our areas of discussion. Any further comment? Carol?
I just want to say a big thank you to all the folks that worked so hard on that committee. It was a very long and arduous process, and I think the people that honestly were appointed were a good pick. It was a good group of people that really melded pretty well and came from different angles, and I thought it was a really, really great committee, and they did some good work. And for, I would say, 99.9%, I agree with most all their changes. I think they did an amazing job, and thank you very much for all the hard work. It was a lot of hours, and it was a lot of hard work, so we appreciate all the effort put forth by the group. Thank you.
Any further comment?
Just ditto.
Tom?
Same here.
Yes, ditto to them all. And what was interesting is we make appointments, and we purposely put some folks on here that we really didn't know. But I tell you, they all contributed, and there's a group of leaders that we need to farm them into our respective parties and appointments, because they took this as this was a task that they worked a ton of hours on, and just being on their emails trying to set up a meeting. I thought we were bad. It was like 50 emails on a day to come up with one common day. But thank you to the entire group. And we'll go to roll call.
Councilman Sakala.
4.
Councilman Denny.
4.
Councilman Hall.
4.
Mayor Copeland.
4.
Councilman Mangini.
4.
Councilman Stokes.
4.
Councilman Suzak.
4.
Councilman Arnone.
4.
Councilman Bosco.
4.
There's 9 in favor, none against, no abstentions.
So does that conclude their formal responsibilities as a Charter Revision Commission?
I believe it does, and I think at the September meeting, you can formally disband them and thank them, if you'd like, at that point.
So if we could do something to recognize them and the work, maybe have them here at the meeting or whatever. Something to thank them for their work. I like that idea.
Drinks? Yeah, happy hour sounds good.
All right. Okay. Next item, discussion resolution to appropriate $60 million for reconstruction and repair of various town roads. Do I have to read the whole thing?
So I make a motion to waive the reading.
Well, by bond counsel, before we make a motion, is this something that should be read in full?
No, Mr. Mayor, just the title can be read and then the whole resolution can be entered into the minutes.
Okay, so resolution to appropriate $60 million for reconstruction and repair of various town roads and roadside elements, and to authorize the issue of bonds, notes, or temporary notes in an amount not to exceed $57,500,000, with the balance funded by grants and other available funds.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Hall, seconded by Councilman Mangini.
Roll call.
Discussion?
And, well, if I could, for the record, what I handed out is, because apparently the second page did not come through on the e-packet. So you got the first page, but didn't get the second page, so you now have both pages with that. Just real briefly, one of the things that we were struggling with as part of this was the thought that if we did the job that we think we've done with this, if there is extra money at the end, the concern is you can only do the roads that are on the list that you present to the public as part of the referendum. So the report references the list that council put together at the last meeting there in June. And so there is language within this resolution that will allow us to, if there is money left over, go to the second list that's actually a part of that report that we put together. And again, I know that was one of the things that we talked about right at the end. Can we do, if there is money left over, can we do more roads? We've established what that list would look like, and this resolution reflects the ability then to do that. So.
Further discussion. Councilman Denny.
No, just so we can add Grant Avenue, Holly, and Cedar then.
Wow.
Any further discussion? Sensing none, roll call, please.
Councilman Sakala.
4.
Councilman Denny.
4.
Councilman Hall.
4.
Mayor Copeland.
4.
Councilman Mangini.
4.
Councilman Stokes.
4.
Councilman Suzak.
4.
Councilman Arnone.
4.
Councilman Bosco.
4.
There's 9 in favor, none against, no abstentions.
Next item, discussion resolution to submit to referendum the appropriation and bonding resolution for road reconstruction. Be it resolved, Section 1, that the following appropriation and bonding resolution approved by the town council heretofore at this meeting shall be submitted to a referendum vote on the voting machines or paper ballots by town electors and qualified voters for approval or disapproval in conjunction with the election to be held on Tuesday, November 4th, 2014, between the hours of 6 a.m. and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Resolution to appropriate $60 million for reconstruction and repair of various town roads and roadside elements, and to authorize the issuance of bonds, notes, or temporary notes in an amount not to exceed $57,500,000, with the balance funded by grants and other available funds. Section 2, that the polling places used by the town for the election shall be utilized by town electors for purposes of the referendum vote on the voting machines or paper ballots. Voters qualified to vote who are not electors shall vote at the Enfield Town Hall in accordance with the procedures contained in Section 9-369D of the Connecticut General Statutes, which procedures the town hereby chooses to apply. Absentee ballots will be available from the town clerk's office. Section 3, that the appropriation and bonding resolution approved above shall be placed upon the voting machines under the following heading. Question 1, quote, shall the town of Enfield appropriate $60 million for reconstruction and repair of various town roads and roadside elements, and authorize the issuance of bonds, notes, or temporary notes in an amount not to exceed $57,500,000, with the balance funded by grants and other available funds? Yes, no, unquote. Section 4, that the warning of the referendum vote shall state that the full text of the resolution adopted by the town council heretofore at this meeting is on file and open to public inspection in the town clerk's office. Moved by Councilman Arnone, seconded by Councilman Mangini. Discussion? Sensing none, roll call, please.
Councilman Sakala?
4.
Councilman Denny?
4.
Councilman Hall?
4.
Mayor Copeland?
4.
Councilman Mangini?
4.
Councilman Stokes?
4.
Councilman Suzak?
4.
Councilman Arnone?
4.
Councilman Bosco? 4. There's 9 in favor, none against, no abstentions.
Next item, discussion resolution. Resolution to authorize the town to prepare explanatory text and materials for the referendum question. The electors and persons qualified to vote in the town of Enfield are hereby warned that a referendum vote will be held in conjunction with the elections on Tuesday, November 4th, 2014, between the hours of 6 a.m. and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The polling places used by the town for the election shall be utilized by town electors for purposes of the referendum vote. Voters qualified to vote who are not electors shall vote at the Enfield Town Hall. The referendum vote shall be on an appropriation and bonding resolution approved by
Mayor.
the town council
Mayor.
on August 4th, 2000.
Mr. Mayor?
What's that?
It's not the right one.
No, it's different. Warning, referendum?
It's not authorizing.
This is the one
I don't have that one either.
Okay.
right there.
Jeez, can we make it bigger? Okay. Resolution to authorize the town to prepare explanatory text and additional explanatory materials for the referendum question. Be it resolved, Section 1, that in their discretion, the town clerk is authorized to prepare a concise explanatory text of the following appropriation and bonding resolution, which, by vote of the town council, has been submitted to a referendum vote on the voting machines of the town, and the town manager is authorized to prepare additional explanatory materials regarding said resolution. Such text and explanatory materials to be prepared in accordance with Connecticut General Statute, Section 9-369B. Resolution to appropriate $60 million for reconstruction and repair of various town roads and roadside elements, and to authorize the issuance of bonds, notes, or temporary notes in an amount not to exceed $57,500,000, with the balance funded by grants and other available funds. Moved by Councilman Hall, seconded by Councilman Stokes. Discussion? Sensing none, roll call, please.
Councilman Sakala?
4.
Councilman Denny?
4.
Councilman Hall?
4.
Mayor Copeland?
4.
Councilman Mangini.
4.
Councilman Stokes.
4.
Councilman Suzak. 4. Councilman Arnone.
4.
Councilman Bosco.
4.
There's 9 in favor, none against, no abstentions.
Okay, that completes miscellaneous. Next item is public communications. Anyone in the audience wishing to address the council? Councilman Communications, Councilman Arnone.
Yeah, I have one that just came over on the wire. Matt, it's with the pond and drinking alcoholic beverages at the pond. You know, we went through this a little while ago, and it seems to be happening again. And there's some pictures on social media right now of just a couple days worth of vodka bottles that were pulled out of there. Now, 99.9% of the time I have witnessed lately beautiful scenes of people feeding ducks, and that's really important. And all it takes is, you know, one person to gather all this stuff up, and rightfully so, and then say, look at the mess we have down here. So postings, if we can get, I know postings, you know, no alcohol in this area, but, you know, we had a lot of confusion as to whether it was actually, if you could or not have alcohol, and we know it's a no. So if we have, you know, this is a park, no alcoholic beverages, and then, again, make the police aware that the people with the brown paper bags there, we got the youth center, kids are walking by there all the time, and it just kills me to see people drinking on those, at that park. And we should treat it like any other park, 0 tolerance, no booze. And thank you.
Yep.
Greg?
I just wanted my wife, who's probably going to bed before I get home tonight, but our anniversary is tomorrow, so if I don't see you tonight, happy anniversary. So,
Happy anniversary, Don. You too, Greg.
thank you.
Any further councilman
It's been a
communications?
blessing for her. It really has.
Yes, it has.
Second.
All right, is there a motion to adjourn this meeting? Councilman Mangini, seconded by Councilman Denny. All those in favor, say aye. Those opposed? We are adjourned, and we move right to our water pollution control. Come on. Can we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Arnone.
Commissioner.
Present. Yes, still here.
Commissioner Bosco.
Here.
Commissioner Sakawa.
Here.
Commissioner Denny.
Here.
Commissioner Edgar. Commissioner Hall.
Here.
Chairman Copen.
Here.
Vice Chairman Lee. Commissioner Mangini.
Here.
Commissioner Stokes.
Here.
Commissioner Suzak.
Here.
There's 9 members present, 2 are absent.
Okay, although, no, they're not, they're not part of the packet, so we can't approve the minutes of June 16th. We have no old business, we have no new business, but I do need someone to make a motion to move item A to miscellaneous and proceed to vote. So,
Motion.
Second.
motion by Commissioner Hall, seconded by Commissioner Stokes to move item A
Item
to
A.
miscellaneous and proceed to vote. Discussion? By show of hands, all those in favor? Those opposed? Item's been moved to miscellaneous. So under items for discussion, we have B, a resolution adopting the sewer connection policy. Matt?
Yes. Very, very briefly.
Promise?
Yes. As council's aware, at the last time we had discussed how we were going to construct the sewer connection fee costs, or fee, we decided to go on the East Windsor model for basing it on EDUs, equivalent dwelling units. As part of that, we needed to come up with a back policy that supports how that's going to be done. And so what I put together, and tonight is just introducing it to you, take a look at it, read it. We will need to act upon this at the point in time if council approves the change in the actual structure for the connection fee. So tonight, it's a matter of just me handing it out to you, take a look at it. I've already gotten some comments back from Deputy Mayor Lee and Councilman Arnone, who are kind of the go-to people throughout this whole process. So we'll make some changes relative to what their recommendations are. And again, if there's any recommendations that you have or want to talk about for the next meeting, please let me know.
Any questions on that item? Okay. Then we will move to miscellaneous. And the item is resolution regarding setting a public hearing for the 2014-15 sewer connection charges. Whereas the Enfield Water Pollution Control Authority values the opinions and comments of its constituents, and whereas in accordance with Town Code Section 86-52F, the Enfield Water Pollution Control Authority must hold a public hearing prior to enacting amended rates or fees. Now therefore be it resolved that the Enfield Water Pollution Control Authority shall conduct a public hearing in the Town Council Chamber at Town Hall, 820 Enfield Street, Tuesday, September 2nd, 2014, at 6:30 p.m. on the proposed changes for the sewer connection fee for fiscal year 2014-2015.
So moved. Second.
By Commissioner Mangini, seconded by Commissioner Hall. Any discussion? I just have one request. When we put out the announcement that there's a public hearing, can we be specific as to what the changes are?
Yes. I
Versus
agree.
people thinking that we're changing the whole thing.
Correct.
So
Yep.
that would help get information out. Any
Will do.
further comments? Sensing none, roll call, please.
Councilman Sakala.
4.
Oh, I'm sorry, I got a little mixed up there.
That's okay.
All right. Commissioner
Suzanne, you can do it
Sakala.
any way you want.
Thank you so much. All right. All right, Commissioner Denny.
4.
Commissioner Hall.
4.
Chairman Copen.
4.
Commissioner Mangini.
4.
Commissioner Stokes.
4.
Commissioner Suzak.
4.
Commissioner Arnone.
4.
And Commissioner Bosco. Okay. There's 8 in favor, none against, and 1 abstention.
You
Can I
wanted to be called out.
bring something up under miscellaneous?
Sure. Councilman Mangini.
All right, I just wanted to bring something forward on behalf of what Councilman Denny was talking about earlier. I have a bill in front of me, a sewer use charge for one of the well users. There are several of our residents in town that are well users. This particular bill has a $54.24 charge from the last bill. Current charge, $54.24, totaling $108.48. Bill date 7/23/14. Now, in our last water pollution control meeting, June 13, Matt, you prepared a letter stating, that you recommended the consumption be lowered based upon the usage from the $54.24 to the $43.32, which is the reduction of $10.92 per quarter. I understand, and probably most council people here understand, that this bill date is for what had happened, but the residents out there are not clear as to when will this take effect. And they were expecting that this second $54.24 charge was going to be $43.32. In fact, some well people are under the belief that both $54.24 times 2 would have been reduced by less than $43.32 times 2. How can we address this appropriately to the residents?
Well, we can put out clarification on the webpage, through the normal channels.
Okay.
I mean,
I
that's
know it's-
probably if you want to address the bills that have gone out, it's too late now to send out another bill to them to put a comment on that. I mean, we could put it on the next one, but the next one will reflect what the new rate is. So again, the only way that we can now address that is by putting something out through the different media channels that we have.
Okay. Again, it's not a lot of money, but it's just the principle of the fact that I don't believe we were clear as a government body informing the people. And I wondered if there was some way we could rectify this. And I'm just bringing that forward to everyone to digest. Thank you. Leave it at that.
Councilman Suzak.
I understand that this is going to change every year, that we will assess this on an annual basis and the rates could change every single year.
That was what we had talked about doing,
Right,
correct?
so people are going to have to get used to that on July 1st, it's going to change. And it's an every year thing, just like the mill rate is an every year thing. These things are not going to be constant and in stone, and I think that that's something that we kind of don't understand.
Councilman Arnone, then Councilman Denny.
But although that is true, we do have, Matt, fixed into this particular move, a 5-year rate, hopefully stabilized rate for 5 years.
Yeah, the rate, the actual
Although it
per
still can happen.
thousand, yeah, the actual per thousand rate is what we've planned on not adjusting for the next 5 years. It's just the consumption for the well users.
Could change.
Right.
Fair enough. And this is all a retroactive thing too. They're looking to try to get, but we changed the rate or we changed the rate of consumption as opposed to said, oh, we did something wrong. So as of a certain point, we had just changed the rate. So that's reflected in those two bills.
We changed the estimated consumption for well users.
The estimated consumption.
Starting
Exactly.
July 1st.
Starting on that day. So that's why their bills reflected is now we're not going back and giving refunds or anything like that because it was what it was back then. Today it is what it is
Correct.
now.
So yeah, so the unfortunately the billing cycle is such that the second bill that this particular well user received was really for previous to July 1st. So the next billing cycle will reflect the 12,700 gallons, yeah, whatever that number is. So the next one will reflect the change because that will be for the period beginning
Right.
July 1st.
Right. Okay, just so we maybe confused it more, but
Yes, and I understand, yeah, unfortunately, it is very confusing when we make those changes like that. I think, again, if we could go back in time, we probably would have put a message on that bill had we known that there was, that confusion. But again, we're kind of limited now to just the channels that we have to let people know. It's kind of hard to go back and do that.
Your microphone, Cindy.
I'm sorry, so therefore, Matt, you'll be putting something, okay, thank you.
Yep, we'll do that.
Councilman Denny?
No, I just addressed that when people call me, that after the second bill, from now on, you'll be charged the 12, whatever it is.
Yeah, and that's, when they call our office.
It will be an
that's-
adjustment, and you'll be back to $40-something rather than 54. I mean, but I think you should put something somewhere, let people know. I think they were all under the assumption that they were going to pay the $54 for the 17,000 gallons, and once we made that adjustment, that it would start with this bill, which was not the case.
Right. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else before the Water Pollution Control Authority? Is there a motion to adjourn? Second. By Councilman Mangini, seconded by Councilman Stokes. All those in favor? Those opposed? We are adjourned. Then you can sit here. Good night.